Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of the Gin and Tonic Show. Joining us today is Mr. Akber Chaudhry. I'm your host, Almighty Atheismo. With us is the Rationalizer and Stopspamming. Klingshore is absent with a critical case of attention deficit disorder. Also, we bring you today the news that Neil Armstrong has passed away, but at least our religious friends can console themselves with the notion that he's punching out conspiracy theorists in the afterlife. Today our topic will be sectarian divisions, sex, lies, drugs, rock and roll, history of different heterodoxies. Wow, we're really professional here, aren't we? The history of different heterodoxies in Islam, and of course the modern politics and divisions. If you'd like to join the panel, I mean, why wouldn't you after a professional, slick introduction like I just gave there? I mean, Anyway, I'll stop with the self-deprecation.
One thing with Neil Armstrong's story, have you guys seen the Memory TV interview? There's two guys on Memory TV, and they talk about Neil Armstrong. And they're talking about Neil Armstrong went into space, and he saw the Earth, and said, but who hung it there? It is hung on nothing. And then he became a Muslim.
Wow, facepalm.
I mean, there's a logical link there, obviously. As soon as you see that the Earth isn't a bauble on a Christmas tree.
I wouldn't blame Akber if he just left right now. Anyway, if you'd like to join the panel, please send a contact request to the Gin and Tonic Show on Skype. We will bring you in when we're ready to take callers. Please don't call into the show. All guests are advised that we are being streamed live over Blog TV, and that this will be recorded and uploaded later onto YouTube. Okay, so Mr. Chaudhry, you were born in Pakistan and later moved to. You now reside in London, and you're an activist and. Tell us a little bit about the organization you work for, and then I'd like to hear a bit about your personal story, because you were part of a sect, I think a lot of non-Muslims, or at least people non-Muslims not from South Asia, wouldn't know about, the Ahmadiyya sect, and you were once a member of the sect, and then you left, and now you are very outspoken against them. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, yes, as you did introduce me, I was born in Pakistan, raised in Africa. I call myself Canadian. That's where I've lived most of my life. And last 5 years I've been here in the UK. About 12 years ago, I had a sort of awakening where I said, which community that I belong to, and I call myself a Muslim. These two don't seem to be congruent. They don't seem to jive with each other. So it was a personal decision reached after about 5 years of research and thinking. And after that, I was just minding my own business, going on with my life. And in 2010, there was some media campaign here in the UK. I came to UK for work. I'm in the software industry. I've been in the software industry for about 15 years. I came to the UK for work, and in 2010 it so happened that there was a media hubbub about the Ahmadiyya and how they were being persecuted and how they were being killed and how there was a strong chance that they would be killed here in the UK and so on. And some of that may be valid, but the type of allegations against some of my friends and some of the people I know in the Muslim community were completely off base. So I was involuntarily dragged into this controversy in 2010, and had to take a media position, or had to appear on the media on behalf of Muslim organizations that did not have somebody to speak on behalf of them. So I took a personal risk there to my career, to my personal reputation, and I said, you know what, some things you choose to do, and some things you have to do, and this was one of those things that was that I had to do, and ever since I've tried to do the best I can.
That's good. So you were a member of the Ahmadiyya sect at one time. Then it sounds like you went through a period of relative irreligiosity, and then went back to non-Ahmadiyya Islam.
Not necessarily. My flirtation with atheism was when I was 21, 22. long time ago. This was just in the wake of 9/11. Almost every Muslim questioned their identity and where they belonged and what was happening. So although my intellectual research was going on before then, it was in the aftermath of 9/11 that I said, am I a Muslim or am I an Ahmadi, or am I an Ahmadi Muslim? And that's where the thought occurred, which crystallized into the belief that being an Ahmadi was not being a Muslim, not because of the rituals or the beliefs. It's an offshoot of Islam, and I would encourage Muslims to recognize them as an offshoot of Islam, not to call them derogatory names as kafir and others, words like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was.
Mr. Akber, yeah. Can you just give us a 2-second summary of the differences that you know of between Muslims and Ahmadiyyas in your view, why they are being called something different?
He doesn't mean 2 seconds literally. We're not. There's no buzzer you have to ring. He's just.
Yeah, I call them. If you want 2 seconds, which I appeared on Al Jazeera last year, and the 2-second summary is that Ahmadis are the Mormons of Islam. You can completely compare them to the Mormon religion and Latter-day Saints. They have a concept of Latter-day spirituality and Latter-day Saints, similar to Baha'ism, but Baha'ism has had the opportunity to isolate themselves and differentiate themselves from the Muslim community. So because of this Latter-day spirituality theme among the Ahmadiyya, they consider themselves to be isolated from the mainstream Islamic community. They don't marry among them. They don't go to their mosques. They're a separate community, yet they want to be recognized as Muslims. While not being a member of the Muslim ethos or the Muslim suffering in the world or the Muslim happiness in the world. So the best compromise there would be to believe in them as an offshoot of Islam, a new religion that had its beginnings within Islam, just as Sikhism was an offshoot of Hinduism and Baha'ism was also an offshoot of Islam. The Druze are also an offshoot of Islam. The Mormons are an offshoot of mainstream Christianity. So this is what I believe that their position should be.
Okay, thank you.
So Scientology was an offshoot of Star Trek.
Scientology is more of a pure cult.
Yeah.
Sorry to say that.
That's a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
So, this is the thing about speciation between new religions. You said that Baha'i, and from what I've seen confirms, is Baha'i are comfortable in saying, okay, we've placed our domino next to the domino that the Muslims placed that was next to what the Christians and Jews placed, but we're a new thing. We're not. They're comfortable, but at least some Ahmadiyyas consider themselves to be both Muslims and Ahmadiyyas. Is that accurate?
Yes, if you go back in history, you will see that even Baha'ism did not declare themselves right from the beginning. But slowly a rift appeared and that rift widened. And this is exactly the process that the Ahmadiyya are going through right now. In about 50 years' time, we would see that this rift has expanded. And you use the word speciation, and that is exactly the right word to use here. When populations are isolated for a long time, they result in a different species. So in 1930, the British in India passed an act declaring the Sikh community as a separate religion. Before that, they were counted among the Hindu for census purposes and for other purposes. So yes, this is a gradual process, and Muslims have to be liberal enough to not to call them kafir and call them other such derogatory names, but accept that as an offshoot of Islam. And the Ahmadiyya are well advised that if they are going to remain socially isolated from the Muslim community, then they should accept that and not start media campaigns against Muslims and not engage in typical cult-like behavior that antagonizes Muslims.
Okay.
What kind of cult-like behavior do you mean, for example?
So I've been a member of the Ahmadiyya. When I was an Ahmadi, I was not told about any Muslim scholars, any Muslim books. I was told that the whole Islamic community is sitting idle on their backsides. They are not doing anything. The only people who are doing anything for Islam are us, the Ahmadiyya. You should never go near a Muslim mosque. The first time I went to a Muslim mosque in 2002, I was very scared. I thought they were going to beat me up, and they were actually going to kick me out of the mosque. So it's this fear of the other that is cultivated within the Ahmadiyya just to get the money of their members. Everybody has to pay between 6.5 to 6.25 to 10% of their income by hook or by crook. So Mormonism is the best parallel that I can find. There is no attempt at integration with the Muslim community in Pakistan as well. No historic attempt, and now it's probably too late. So this is how it happens. When a community isolates itself, the mainstream tries to push against them, and then the community isolates itself further. And there is a point in time where they can take an active decision to be part of the main community again, or they can take an active decision to go away. And that is the decision that was made in the 1930s by the Ahmadiyya, and now it's probably too late for them to be absorbed back into the mainstream Islamic tradition. You know?
Now, do you see any cult-like indicators for the madhab that you've switched to, the madhab that you follow now? Do you see any kind of cult-like indicators there?
You guys are very smart. There is an element of some cult-like aspects in every religion. There are certain rituals and certain rules and regulations and certain ecclesiastical, big word there, things or decisions that the members of a community have to abide by. But by cult-like, if you mean control of the thoughts and control of the lives and not being accepted as a good Ahmadi or a good Muslim within the confines of a certain faith, then that is not, in my mind, does not cross the threshold of Dr. Clifton's criteria of what a cult is. So thought control and milieu control are the defining characteristics which push people over the edge, which push a group into being labeled a cult. I'll give you an example. I do not follow strictly one madhab at this time, but no one really cares if what I'm doing in my home or whether I go to the mosque, I miss Jummah a couple of times. You know, there's no one knocking on my door. There's no one calling me. There's no one forcing me to pay. If I pay charity, I pay it out of the goodness of my heart, which it should be. And if I don't pay it, it becomes a burden onto me. It's not a controlling, computerized system where I'm yoked into a money-making machine, you know. So I think there is a fine line between where the cult, the definition of a cult starts.
I was thinking more along the lines of, for example, if a man was married, he had a number of children, and that man, after, say, 10, 20 years of marriage, had a flirt with atheism as you did in your 20s, but found atheism a bit more of a attractive seductress than you did, and then became an atheist. How do you think that the community that they're in, just a British community, say in London, predominantly Muslim area, how do you think that he would feel perfectly free to come out and say to everyone, by the way, I don't actually believe any of this anymore? Or do you think that there would be problems with that man maintaining his marriage because they would say a Muslim woman can only be married to a Muslim man?
Yeah, if a man were to say, you know what, I don't believe in all this, and I have a lot of Muslim friends who are borderline atheists, if he was not a militant atheist, I believe he would survive in the mainstream Islamic culture. But if he was somebody like Richard Dawkins or Mariam Namazi or other people like that, then yes, he would have some trouble. Having said that, the rules for the Ahmadiyya are that Ahmadis cannot marry any Muslim. Their women cannot marry any Muslim outside, and they treat the other Muslims like the people of the book that Muslims treat Christians and Jews like. So they apply the same philosophy that Islam applied for Christianity and Judaism to Islam. And they said it in English, and it is in one of my videos, that Ahmadism to Islam is the same way as Christianity was to Judaism. And their founder calls himself the Messiah, just like Jesus Christ, Isa alayhi salam, was a Messiah unto Moses. So it is a deliberate bifurcation for the Ahmadiyya faith to depart from Islam. Coming back to your question, if somebody were to become a militant atheist, yes, they would have trouble. But if somebody would just become a disbeliever and participate in the Eid prayer or a couple of other traditions that are common in the Muslim community, I don't think he would be ostracized, you know?
Yeah, so it's kind of it's controlling their behaviour then. As long as they conformed to a behaviour that they disagreed with, then nobody would ostracise them.
That is right. I mean, as a Muslim now, if I were to say my Friday prayer in the East London Mosque, or if I were to say my Friday prayer in the Regent Street Mosque, no one cares. But when I was an Ahmadi, going to a Muslim mosque is cause for excommunication. So this is the milieu control or the environment control that Dr. Lifton talks about when he talks about Ahmadiyya. In fact, in 2002, I wrote an article about why the Ahmadiyya was a cult and how they should try to get out of it. And at that time, I had not announced that I was going to leave the Ahmadiyya, and the Ahmadiyya leaders in Canada called me in for an inquiry. I said, fantastic, where and when? And I never heard back from them. So this was the first thought that occurred to me, that I am living in a very controlled environment where even if I say anything good about any Muslim whatsoever, you will never see the Ahmadiyya in any of their websites or in any of their videos say anything good, not even a single word about any Muslim leader, about any Muslim scholar, or about any Muslim who has achieved anything, or even if a mosque has been vandalized in the US, you will not hear anything about it. If a Sikh temple has been vandalized, or if people have been killed in a Sikh temple in the US, the Ahmadiyya would jump to the forefront and would condemn it. But if a mosque has been burnt in Tennessee, you will never hear a word out of them. So it is kind of an anti-Islamic theme within the Ahmadiyya in order to establish themselves as quote-unquote the real Islam, which alienates them from the mainstream Islamic community.
I think that's the thing with religion, though, isn't it? You always get splinter groups. They always claim to be the most authentic of the religious sects. And then the problem is the only way that you've got to reconcile in that is an appeal to popularity. Whichever one happens to become the most popular automatically becomes the most true. But when you was talking about cults being controlling, when you said, yes, Islam would The person who apostatized, became an atheist, would not be ostracized from the community as long as they carried on pretending to be a Muslim. In my opinion, that is occult behaviour, because this person has not got the freedom to express what they truly believe. They must pretend that they believe what other people believe, just so that they don't get excluded by the social group. And when you said the Ahmadiyya, they don't let you marry people who aren't also Ahmadiyya, I see the same thing in Islam as well, where a Muslim man can only marry a person of the book, but a Muslim woman can only marry a Muslim man. And that is exactly the same thing. It's putting a controlled limitation on people's lives, it's removing part of their freedom in order to protect the belief itself. And the only difference with Ahmadiyyism is that it's more selective than Islam is. You've got a few more options in Islam than you have in Ahmadiyya.
Yeah, so just like you mentioned that a Muslim is not allowed to marry, this is exactly what Ahmadiyya do. And just like Islam has, because of these restrictions, become a separate religion from Christianity, although I still sometimes refer to Islam as the Arabian version of Christianity, but that's a separate conversation. Yeah, so this is exactly why they've become a separate religion, or are becoming a separate religion, because you will not find a mainstream Shia cleric giving a fatwa that you cannot marry a Sunni, or you will not find a Sunni saying that they cannot marry a Shia. They will say that it is not advisable, but if you go ask them, can I do it? I'm in love with the other person. They will invariably say it's okay, it's halal. So, so this is where the boundaries of a sect. I wouldn't even call the Shia and Sunni as sects. That's a separate discussion altogether, because they're not like Catholicism and Protestantism. They have the same. They go to Mecca. When all Muslims who go to Mecca once a year pray behind the same imam, you cannot really call them sects as we know in Christianity. But yes, you are right. There is a certain amount of social cohesion among a group. And that social cohesion defines a religion and does not define a sect. So you and I are saying the same thing, and this is why I say they are a separate religion rather than a sect of Islam.
I'll just give you the opportunity just to withdraw a part of his statement, because what I'm saying is that Islam is a cult. So you might not be saying exactly the same as I'm saying. I'm assuming that you're not saying that Islam is a cult.
Islam is not centralized, does not have thought control, does not have milieu control, and does not have other characteristics of a cult that psychologists and sociologists ascribe to groups like Scientology and others. So, as I said, every religion has some kind of social things that are cult-like. I agree with that, but it doesn't reach the threshold that sociologists and psychologists usually use for a cult. I know cult is a derogatory word, and you have the full right to use it for Islam, but I would not agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we use a particular person's religion as a case study of whether something is a cult or not, it obviously treads on very delicate ground. But just strictly speaking, we'll just use two religions that nobody here practices and say, okay, well, like you said, with Christianity and Mormonism, and of course in the U.S. you have Christian-based cults sprouting up all over the place, and then they live in these compounds, and there really is a gray area, and often I think what happens is when a religion reaches a certain number of followers, they realistically can't maintain the same level of control and cohesion that they were when they were small, and that really, I think, is the primary defining line, because certainly major world religions still punish people for what could be considered, well, what are thought crimes, and they just when you're not living all in the same compound, or you're not a religious minority that you feel you have to really band together, I think that you lose that cohesion. But I was talking with was talking with someone who was part of like a political radical group, and what he particularly believed isn't really important. But I said, you know, he kept saying that people who believe in like mainstream, mainstream political views, anyone who would vote for a mainstream candidate or support a mainstream anything to do with status quo, anyone who wasn't part of the system that he was proposing, where they completely overhaul the political system according to his ideas, they were part of a cult, and they always gave the same answers and so forth. And I thought, well, you know, in a sense, if you're trying to reform the whole system, you're going to need to think like a cult. You should take accusations of being part of a cult as a compliment, because, you know, cults, though they tend to be refer to small groups, they have a very efficient model. You know, like if you look at what was it, Jonestown, when Jim Jones set up that colony, he had those people working day and night and just at his beck and call, and they were very efficient. And I thought, you know, and then I'm talking to this guy, and I don't think he gets up before noon, and he's got a bunch of other people who don't get up before noon, and he thinks that he's gonna, like, you know, lead this revolution. And I thought, you know, you're going to need to really, you know, often these battles go to the people who want it more. So, you know, like you said, the cult nowadays is a derogatory term. Way back in ancient days, it just meant, you know, for different pagan gods had their different cults. So the use of that word has changed dramatically. But when we come back to the Ahmadiyya or a lot of these smaller offshoots, often they are more conservative and more strict overall. Is that one of the major selling points? I don't know what the conversion numbers are like for Ahmadiyya, of conversion of Muslims to Ahmadiyism. But do you think that the more conservative approach is the primary selling point, that, you know, we are the cure for the malaise that you see in many parts of the Muslim world? I'm getting up. I can still hear you, but I'm going to be I have to get up for just a moment.
You've hit upon a couple of points. Yes, the Ahmadiyya are very efficient, just like any other small organization. But it is this concept that we have the only version of the truth, and only being attached to this person and only being attached to this small group is your salvation. I think that is one of the boundary lines of where a cult differs from a mainstream religion. For example, some people say that Catholicism is a cult in how they excommunicate and so on. But Catholicism would not force salvation. They used to do on Protestants, say that you cannot really be salvated unless you believe in, you know. So this is the type of lines that are drawn. Sorry, what was the second part of his question? I kind of...
No, I didn't catch the second part of his question.
I also don't remember. I'm sorry.
You said that these people all claim to have the exact truth, and that the only way to salvation is through their religion. Chapter 3, verse 85 of the Quran says, "And whoever desires other than Islam as religion, never will it be accepted from him, and he in the hereafter will be among the losers." The losers being the people that burn for eternity in hell. So the religion of Islam is claiming to have the only path to eternal salvation, and anyone else from another religion, excluding Abrahamic just for the sake of argument, any non-Abrahamic or post-7th century Abrahamic religion, they are losers and they will go to hell. So Islam itself is claiming to be the only way to salvation.
If you exclude Abrahamic and you say idolaters, yes, you are right that Islam does not look upon any mushrikeen or idolaters as going to the path to salvation. You said, you quoted the verse, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا. But at the same time, in Surah Baqarah, there is that if you are Christian or Jew or Sabi or so on, and you do good deeds, then yes. But if people associate partners with Allah or they are mushrikeen, yes, Islam does draw that dividing line. Coming back to the question of their conversion numbers, sorry, I forgot that second part. The conversion numbers and the conservatism of the Ahmadiyya. Ahmadiyya are unique among cults in them not having a solid theology. This is what differentiates them from Mormonism or Scientology or other things. Their founder was a prophet, was not a prophet, was half a prophet, was one-third a prophet. Depending on who their audience is and depending on where they are located, they can be extremely conservative or they can portray themselves as extremely liberal. They're an opportunistic, family-owned cult, which is from my experience. My whole family is still among them. They do not have a prescribed theology. So if you ask them, should women wear the burqa? Oh, no, this is not a requirement. But if you see their khalifas, their leader's wife wears the burqa, and about 10 years ago, anybody who did not wear the burqa, the black Pakistani burqa, was excommunicated. The same way they will say, oh, jihad with the sword is not allowed anymore. But if you look into their history, they had a battalion of in the Pakistan Army, the Ahmadi battalion called the Furqan Force, which went to fight India. And even now in their city in Rabwa in Pakistan, Chanab Nagar, they actually are very well armed, and they have a militia of young men who protect that town. So their theology is not quite clear. I would call them very conservative because I've come from them, but this is not what they portray to the media. The same thing with the conversion numbers. Right from 1897, there's always been extreme exaggeration among their conversion numbers. In the UK, they were about 25,000 4 or 5 years ago, and now they are down to about 18,000 just because of people who have left the Ahmadiyya for mainstream Islam. But if you talk to them, oh, we are growing by leaps and bounds, and it's completely insane. The difference between Ahmadiyya reality and what Ahmadiyya say in the media is pulled apart, and this was one of the reasons why I brought them into a cult. So coming back to your question, Mr. Rationalizer, yes, there is always an exclusivity for a religion, but as soon as that exclusivity has been established, you become a new religion. For purposes of this conversation, if you go to the website amanmessage.com, there was an effort by the Jordanian government, by King Abdul or his father, I don't know, to define what the mainstream Islamic community was. This was in response to Al-Qaeda, that Muslim sects should not be calling each other kafir. And they have defined a well-established mainstream Islamic thought in that message called Aman Message, AMMAN, message.com. And within that mainstream Islam, they do not own the exclusivity of salvation among each sect. So you will not find the Mufti of Al-Azhar, or you will not find the Ayatollah of Iran saying that salvation is only restricted to Shia, or salvation is only restricted to Sunni,
Just a bit more broad, it's restricted to people that believe in the Abrahamic God.
In one single God. So I think one single God is the line that Islam draws. In fact, Islam mentions Jesus and Mary in the Quran with much love and much reverence. But when it comes to Trinity, it takes a very hard line. If you read Surah Maryam, it takes a very hard line against the three gods and say to the Christians, you are our brothers, but you have ascribed to God a son and a wife, and you should not have done that. So I think, Islam does draw the line at one God.
I mean, that it's the only thoughts that are really going through my head is because when you say something like Ahmadiyya is a cult because they limit who you can marry, and then I think just replace the word Ahmadiyya with Islam, it's the same thing. Ahmadiyya is a cult because they proclaim to have the only true route to salvation. Replace Ahmadiyya with Islam, it's the same. And by every criteria that you've used so far, Ahmadiyya, they try to control what you are and are not allowed to do. Again, you can replace that with Islam. You're not allowed to go and tell people that you're an atheist. You're not allowed to marry an atheist, and so on. You are controlled what you do with threat of ostracisation. Every criteria so far that you've given that you use to qualify the Ahmadiyya madhab as a cult also applies to mainstream Islam. And I'm struggling to see why you would not include Islam as a cult based on your objective criteria.
Very good question. I think there are two thoughts here. There are two separate things. One, most of the arguments that you have given and I have given are to make to say that the Ahmadiyya is a separate religion. So if they fulfill all the criteria that you define to a religion, monopoly over salvation, although Islam doesn't do it, and things like that, then you and I agree that they are a separate religion. Now, as a separate religion, the question of being a cult is separate from the question of being a separate religion. Ahmadiyya can survive without being a cult as a separate religion. So their cult-like characteristics and their being a separate religion are two different things here. So if Ahmadiyya were to become like Baha'ism or like Sikhism or like the Druze, they would be a separate religion, but they would not be a cult. But if they were to become like Scientology and some other things, the control, the small community, as you say, and the money making, that's what makes them a cult. So some of the points that you've mentioned, I have used those as to define them as a separate religion, and the other points are to define them as a cult. I do wish that they would define themselves as a separate religion and they would not be a cult. So you can get out of being a cult by not having very controlling behavior or by not having an opaque financial system. You can get away from that and by not restricting your followers to not visit other Islamic sites or to not go to other Muslim mosques or not to read what other Muslims write. So yes, you can do that. But being a separate religion, you and I agree that if they put those restrictions and that monopoly of salvation, then yes, they do become a separate religion. So there are two separate strands of thought here.
Okay, actually, on that note, since we have a pause, I'm going to bring in the first of our callers. We have a total of 4 people lined up. This is Hassan Al-Dalami. He wants to talk about Islam and biblical prophecy. Hassan, are you with us?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for calling. How can we help you?
I'm alright, just trying to figure out this iPad thing. I just want to talk about the prophecies, basically, about Islam and biblical prophecies that were confirmed in the Quran and prophesied by Jesus, peace be upon him, in the Old Testament.
Okay, great. Go for it.
Okay, basically, you see, Islam, basically, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the final prophet, and he didn't start anything but finished it, and basically, Jesus, peace be upon him, prophesied the coming of a kingdom that would come on earth as it is in heaven forever and ever. Now, we don't reject all the Bible, we just reject what the writers contradict concerning what Jesus said. So, I'll give you an example, like Matthew 5, Jesus says, I come not to alter the law. Not one dot until heaven and earth disappears of the Torah or the past prophets will be altered until heaven and earth disappears. That means you can go back to Deuteronomy 24:16. A father is not put to death for the sins of the children. Neither are the children put to death for the sins of the father. But everyone is put to death for their own sin. So that means, yeah, Jesus meant what he meant, that he came not to alter the law, not one dot until heaven and earth disappears. And that means everyone is accountable for their own sin. And also when it comes down to the fact that Jesus never said he was God or the Son of God, but you see the Romans and the Greeks, they always had literal sons of gods. Human sacrificial doctrines and literal sons of gods like sons of Jupiter, sons of Zeus. Human sacrificial doctrines, and basically they believed in Trinitarian gods, Romans and Greeks. So Paul had to compromise the message of Jesus for his audience. So what he done is he watered Jesus down for them to accept it. And this one way, which was Jesus preaching, was the revival of the Torah and the laws of Moses. So this one way became two ways, Judaism and what Christianity is, or Paulianity. And this was made official in the 4th century. So Jesus mentioned a helper that will come, and this helper was mentioned in the Torah as a prophet in Deuteronomy 18 that will come from among the brethren, not from among the children. Because you see, the Israelites are always mentioned as the children. Yeah, so when it says in Deuteronomy 18, I will raise up a prophet of among the brethren, your brethren, and I will put my words in his mouth, will speak in my name. Whoever of you does not listen to him, I shall call you to account. It means a prophet of the nation of, a prophet from the brother of the nation of Isaac. Because the role of the prophet is not to keep the message for himself, but to guide his people. So Allah is warning the Israelites in Deuteronomy 18, if you do not accept that prophet that comes from the brethren, I myself shall call you to account. That means they must accept the Quran and the final prophet who legislated the vision of the Messiah. And the proof is the cycle of the prophethoods, and that Muhammad is the final prophet. When the Messiah returns back, he will confirm the truth.
Okay.
And so
I'm gonna interrupt you right here. You've given us a lot. You've given us a lot to digest. So let's go back over it a little bit. First of all, someone in the chat wrote, "Stop quoting the Bible until you can prove it to be true." That's a sticky point because.
Okay, the thing
no,
is,
hold on. Let me comment on this really quick.
Sure.
Muslims don't believe that the Bible, the Christian Bible, is 100% true or false. So. Saying to a Muslim, don't quote the Bible until you can prove it's true, that's like saying, it's like one of those have you stopped beating your wife yet kind of questions, you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't quite compute. But the point is, but it does bring up an interesting point in that correct me if I'm mistaken on even the slightest detail, okay?
Sure.
The mainstream Muslim position is that once upon a time the messages, the three messages that now make up the Bible, the Torah, the Torah, and the
Psalms and
but the third one,
Zabur.
Evangel, the Sabur of
the
David
New
and Solomon.
Testament,
Oh yeah, the New Testament, yeah.
the book of Isa, yeah.
Yeah, the Evangel.
There you go. So those three make up the Bible, but they were changed by various people for personal or factional motives over time. Is that accurate? Okay,
Yeah,
so
because basically,
hang on. That was just a setup. I'll let you come back in a moment. So that creates a sticky situation, and it's my question was going to be to you is, given the fact that that the Bible, from the standpoint of Muslim doctrine, is corrupted, how much confidence can you have in your reading of these passages? I mean, I've talked about this. We had a Dr. Syed, I forget, Ibrahim Syed, I think it was, and we talked to him at length about this. It's like, is there definitive scholarship on, going line by line in the Bible by top men in Muslim scholarship who say, okay, this is not corrupted, this is corrupted, and I didn't really get a clear, satisfactory answer. So how do you know? I mean, if you're looking at forensic evidence in the Bible that has been tampered with according to the doctrine, how can you be sure that your reading of the prophecies is accurate?
Simple. First of all, you think of the belief of monotheism, and also you compare the religions. Let's compare like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The religion that's more similar to each other is Judaism and Islam. Yeah, so the laws, the Jews are still practicing the law, but they've deviated some of the laws. Like, you see, when Jesus got lifted up to God, yeah, the adversaries were still on earth, yeah, from the high priests and from the Roman Empire. Now, they're going to tarnish the reputation of Jesus their own way, because the high priest, the Jews rejected Jesus. They don't accept Jesus, yeah? And the high priests are, the Roman Empire are tarnishing Jesus by preserving their way of life and their Roman calendar, and they're basically watered down Jesus as the Messiah. So this is why Jesus referred to the high priests as sons of the devils. You're not the sons of Abraham, you're the sons of your father the devil. And also the Roman Empire, they're still ruling. Like when Jesus got lifted up to God, his adversaries were still on the earth, and they shall still be here until the coming back of the Messiah.
What I don't understand, you keep talking about how Jesus was watered down, and this has caused all this misinformation and stuff.
Sure.
But we're talking about an entity that was so powerful that he could turn water into wine. So if someone's going to water Jesus down, why didn't God just like turn the water into wine?
Waka waka.
It's because
it's a kind of facetious question. I know. But what I'm saying is like, God's got this plan, right? He sends this guy down. The poor guy's got to be stuck up on a cross. You know, that's going to hurt, right? And then he goes up to him, and God says, okay, this guy Paul's going to mess everything up, and there's going to be a few billion people in the world that are going to get it completely wrong, that I'm going to be really annoyed about. And even 1,400 years after I've told them that Jesus wasn't the Son of God, there's still going to be a few billion that think that he is. But never mind. I'm all knowing. I knew this was going to happen before I ever did it, and yet I let it happen anyway.
But the thing
how does that make sense?
You see, when it comes down to the truth of Jesus, you see, like the truth of Jesus is he never reached the cross, because he said the marking sign was Jonah. So he was lifted up to alive, and someone died in his place, got the curse. We believe that it could have been Judas that got the curse, yeah. And even church fathers have been saying it could have been Judas that got the curse, yeah, because he looked more like Jesus, and Jesus was lifted up to God. When it comes down to,
he died on the cross, or not died on the cross, went on the cross or not, is kind of irrelevant to the point that I made. The point that I made is God knew when he sent Jesus that for over 1,400 years, many, many people would believe that Jesus was God. And God didn't want them to believe that. And even 1,400 years after Muhammad said, by the way, Jesus wasn't God, there are still billions of people in the world who believe that Jesus was God. Not only did God know that this was going to happen in the future, God thought, yeah, seems like a reasonable way to do it. I'll go ahead with that plan. If you know the future and you've got all of the power to make anything any way that you want, and you don't want people to believe that Jesus was the Son of God, how much of a big failure is it that 1,400 years later, there's countless millions and millions of people in the world, through no fault of their own, believe that Jesus was God? How much of a failure is that?
Okay, first of all, when it comes down to it, back in them days, there wasn't millions or billions, yeah? And the followers of Jesus were a small minority of Judaic Christians who were called Nazarenes, and they were wiped out by the movement of the pagans or the Paulians who adopted the Pauline doctrine. So when it came down to people who got forced into it, they were forced into accepting this way of life, whether they were in South Americas, whether they were in Philippines, whether they were in India today, whether the Catholic Church, it was all forced onto them when it came down to it, and this is how it spread. When it came down to Islam, if you look at Islam, because there was a trading agreement pre-Islam, yeah, that we're not saying that there were battles that they had to defend, like basically themselves, because some people opposed it. Those that opposed it were basically the Romans and the pagan empire of the Christian kingdom of Paul. Other people, because we had a trading agreement all the way to China, that means we didn't have to go with an army or this, that. We just had to go, doctors, engineers, just like say, okay, I've got this Quran, introduce them to it, and they saw our character and way of life, so they embraced it. When it came down to Christianity, how it got spread, the African slave trade, like the black man of today, who is not Muslim, like originally they were Muslim, but because of the slave trade, they got forced into Christianity. Do you understand me? So this is how they force people to believe in this concept, which doesn't really make sense, but Islam does make sense, and it spread all the way, like worldwide, like even the fastest growing religion in America, like due to the way Islam was spread, like, and which was spread like through peace and spreading justice.
Hold on right there. Come on. I'm sorry. No. I know. Look, it's one thing to pull your punches with your particular religion, but it was spread by means including non-peaceful methods, okay? And we'll leave it at that. Come on. Don't just not tell us it's raining.
Okay.
Hold on, the Rationalizer had a comment, but I just want to really quick on someone in the chat said if Jesus was God, he couldn't die, so he didn't die for your sins. I think that's a good point, and that Christians really need to change the slogan to Jesus got his ass beat for your sins. Anyway, the Rationalizer had a comment.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when it came down to Jesus, he never.
No, what I wanted to say.
Let you come back, Hassan. Let Rationalizer have a quick comment.
First of all, not only has it been billions of people that believe in the Trinity since 1400 years ago, according to the census of 2012, there are almost 1.2 billion Catholics in the world in 2012. Now, if we say, 25% of those really are religious and believe in the Trinity, we only have to go back 3 generations, and then you've got your 1.2 billion people. There have been billions of people that have believed in the Trinity since after Muhammad died, and since after Islam had been known throughout the world. The God that you expect me to believe in, with foreknowledge and with the power to do it differently, devised a plan whereby billions and billions of people would believe something that he did not want them to believe. And in my eyes, that is probably the most monumental failure that I have ever heard of. I have never heard of anything on a bigger scale than that.
We'll let Hassan come back. Try to be brief, Hassan, because we haven't let Mr. Chaudhry comment in some time. I'd like to know what he thinks about this. But,
sure.
Yeah.
Would I be able to give you? I'm going to give you one proof of the Quran, scientific miracle of the Quran. Yeah.
Well, if you don't, can you say, if you don't have something in response to the Rationalizer, I'd like to go ahead and hear from Chaudhry, and then we'll hear your proof.
Yeah,
okay?
That's fair.
Okay, sure.
So
go ahead, Chaudhry.
Akber, do you have any comment on what we've been talking about with Hassan?
Yeah, the fight between Islam and Christianity should not exist. I believe these days it's over exaggerated. Christians, Islam never, in my humble opinion, and I may get stick for it, Islam did not come out to wipe out Christianity. In fact, if you look at history, you have the Christian kingdom, the Roman Empire on all sides of Arabia at the time that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam appeared. You had Christianity in Egypt among the Copts, and then you had Christianity in terms of the Roman Empire, and Christianity was about to take over the world, the whole civilized world. And here pops up a guy in Arabia, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says, "No, I'm going to spread this back, just because there can only be one God." And then it spread back and got pushed back all the way to Austria and to Spain, and then pushed back. So these things have been going on. I don't believe Islam came out to wipe out any religion from the face of the earth. I believe that religion is there as a personal choice. Allah has given free will. God has given free will to people, and there is a verse in the Quran that says that implies that Christians will continue to exist until the day of judgment. So it is just the concept of a son of God that Islam argues against, but I believe this is to be a self-defeating position in which you say that Islam will wipe out Christianity or Christianity will wipe out Islam. Islam was a reaction to the Trinitarian nature of the Christianity that spread through Arabia or around Arabia in the 6th century. Had the Council of Nicaea not happened in the 3rd century, and had the concept of the Trinity not been enshrined as the official dogma of Christianity, we might have seen history flow in a different way. No?
Okay, Hassan, we're going to make this the last cut. We have, I think, 3 more callers still waiting, so we'll hear out your scientific proof.
Just before you go on to the scientific miracle, you did say if anybody knows of at least one claim where people were forced to Islam through violence, there is an account through Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Isham. The Apostle sent Khalid bin Walid to the Banu al-Harith and ordered him to invite them to Islam 3 days before he attacked them. If they accepted, then he was to accept it from them, and if they declined, he was to fight them. He went out on his horse shouting, "If you accept Islam, you will be safe," and then they accepted Islam. Apparently, the leaders of this tribe were brought to Muhammad, and Muhammad said, "If you hadn't accepted, I would have had your heads on the floor before me," or something like that. I don't remember that part.
Okay, I would like to make a comment here. You have to understand that Islam was a religion and Islam was also a state. Muhammad ﷺ had combined the disparate tribes of Arabia into a state, and he was the head of that newborn, nascent Islamic state. So some of the things he did was as head of state, and some of the things he said or did was as a prophet, compared to Jesus, who was not a head of state. So if a tribe or if a community has broken, if they kept to their agreement, or if you read Surah Anfal and Surah Tawbah, if they kept to their agreement, the Islamic State would keep to their agreement, their truce or their treaty. But if they abrogated that agreement with the newfound Islamic State, then yes, the Islamic State had 2 options: either to fight that tribe or that group of people, or for them to come within the fold of the Islamic State. So sometimes Westerners confuse the topic, because Muhammad was sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a prophet as well as an emperor, a king of a newly formed Islamic State.
I don't confuse it. I don't really care whether he was acting on the part of someone that he claimed was talking to him that I don't believe in, or whether he was doing it because he thought it was the right thing to do. I was challenged to provide one instance of Islam spreading by the sword. That was the example. And I think that there is a problem in saying what people don't understand is Muhammad did some stuff as a messenger and some stuff as a head of state. Quran 33:21 says Muslims are to follow Prophet Muhammad's example because he's an embodiment of the great values of humanity. So he's put up there as this person to follow, which I might add is a cult-like behaviour where one person is often seen to be the head of the cult who people would emulate, in this case it being Muhammad. There has certainly been for you in the Messenger of Allah an excellent pattern for anyone whose hope is in Allah and the last day. So yet again, cult-like behaviour. If you're going to say some of what he did was to do with being the head of state, some of it was to do with religious guidance. Unfortunately, he didn't keep a diary. He didn't keep a diary and write from Allah, from Muhammad, from Muhammad, from Allah. So people can cross out all the from Muhammad stuff and go, oh, the stuff from Allah, we'll follow those perfect examples, but everything else we won't, because that was the stuff he did as a head of state.
No. I was not trying to create a division between his acts. What I was trying to say was that his example is like that of David or Solomon, who were prophets as well as being head of state. I mean, these accusations against Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and another one that he married a 9-year-old girl and things like that, you would not find in this day and age or in that day and age, you will not find people who love another person or who admire him to an extent that they're willing to lay down their lives for him if he were not of the highest moral, did not have the highest moral qualities in him. If he was doing something that was not acceptable in that society or was not acceptable in that culture, you wouldn't find people being attracted to him as they are attracted to.
I'm sorry, but that is fatally flawed logic, because there are plenty of examples in the world this very day of charismatic cult leaders who do have sex with children, who have sex with other people's wives, and have sex because for some reason God always wants them to have sex with people.
Because they've
always got this special dispensation, like Muhammad in the Quran has this special dispensation to have extra wives. So, God is always really keen to make sure they get a good bit of nookie before they have to go up to heaven. Okay. And yet these cults, sorry, just let me finish the point, and these cults that are around today, not only do they have people that are willing to die for them, these people often do kill themselves as part of suicide cults, because they think that if they kill themselves, they're going to fly up to a spaceship following the Hale-Bopp comet or whatever they think's going to happen. These people do molest children. They do have sex with other people's wives. They are still held in the highest regard by their followers. Their followers are still willing to kill themselves, and that's in the 21st century, where sex with 9-year-old girls is not socially acceptable, and in the past, sex with young girls was more socially acceptable. So actually, the logic that you just employed was really badly flawed.
So to respond to your point, yes, this is why they need thought control and they need milieu control. So the cults as you described, like the cult in America and other such cults, they enclose their people in a very tightly organized and very tightly controlled place where people cannot judge their leaders by the standards of the society outside. They create an artificial society. And this is exactly what a cult is, what the Ahmadiyya are and what others are. They have an artificial society. They don't live in the mainstream society. The Arabs of the 6th century lived in the open Arab society of the time. They conquered other tribes. It was not a controlled walled compound as it is with David Koresh and other cult leaders. They lived in the general mainstream Arabian society and were expanding. It was a legitimate state and not a closed compound where people would revere their leader despite his moral shortcomings. But this was where he was judged by the standards of society at that time. And a 9-year-old thing is from Hadith, and some of those Hadiths are pretty sketchy. He would not have Aisha's father was his best friend, Abu Bakr, and I really, really doubted if Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had done anything with Aisha radiallahu anha, if he not only was the head of the Muslim state, he was also going to marry his best friend's daughter. So you can imagine that he would not have done what Hadith says or what Hadith does not say. Human logic does not accept that I would do this to a person who has been my best friend for 30, 40 years. I would do something to his daughter that was not of the most the most socially acceptable thing at that time. Number two, Aisha is also known as the favorite wife of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and which means that there was a bond between them that continued after his death for a very long time. So we have to put things into perspective. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not have a walled compound, did not control the thoughts of his believers, of his followers. When he came into Medina, he had to sign a treaty with the Christians and the Jews, and he lived in Medina with Christians and Jews. So there's a bit of a difference between what a cult is and what those early days of the Islamic State were, you know?
Well,
Okay, now, wait, stop. Before you come back, people are calling. Wait, people are calling for blood. They want the miracle. They're chanting miracle, miracle.
I just want
I'm gonna give
We'll let you
it's not going to be it's not going to be challenging. It's just going to be an observation.
So
the
I'll give the proof.
The observation basically is that if the best that an omnipotent, omniscient God can do is a messenger system where people can make up lies and nobody knows what's true and what is false, that's a really badly failed system. And Mr. Chaudhry, I'm pretty sure that you must know some Muslims who do accept that Aisha was 9, and as a consequence of that, accept that Allah has ordained that as long as she looks mature enough, a 9-year-old girl is a suitable bride with whom the husband may have sex. Do you know such a Muslim?
Both of you hold that thought. I want this to continue really quick.
Yeah, let's do the miracle.
We're going to be saying goodbye to Hassan soon. Hassan, thank you for participating. Please give us the...
Thanks for your patience, Hassan.
Okay. There's 114 chapters in the Quran, yeah? The center of the Quran, the 57 chapters called the iron. Now, they've discovered through scientific technology in the 20th century, that in the center of the earth is made of molten iron, yeah? So when it comes down to it, the Quran is a scriptural copy, a design of the earth itself, mentioning the iron in the center of the book, also mentioning the believers and unbelievers, from the time of Adam all the way to the day of judgment and their final destination.
Sounds legit.
Aren't you going to mention...
Just check it out. Check it out. 57 chapters.
No, hang on. No, I don't need to check it out. I already know it. Aren't you going to mention, though? Come on, I'm going to give you a bit of extra miracle claim here. You've got to pay attention. That half of 114 is 57, and the chemical number for iron, what is it, 57 or 58? I can't remember. So... You know, there's another extra bit of miracle. But what is the miracle that the word iron is mentioned in the middle of the book, or what is the miracle?
They've discovered in the center of the earth is made of molten iron, yeah?
Right, okay.
It's mentioned as the chapter in the center of the book. So
right, and
how would Muhammad, peace be upon him, know this? The miracle is... Because the chapter is called the iron, yeah, and it's in the center of the book, just as it is in the center of the earth.
You guys both lose. Hassan, I'm afraid that the center of the core is actually solid iron, not molten, which they've confirmed by sending waves in the ground and looking at the angle that they deflect. Also, Rationalizer, the number for iron, atomic number is 26. You were way off. You need to
it's not the chemical number. It's the atomic weight. It's the atomic weight I'm thinking of. It's the atomic weight.
You know I have internet access, right?
Yes, so do I. I'm not a chemist. Atomic weight of iron. Atomic weight of iron is 55.845.
Very close to
Come on, guys, what are we doing? You are discussing now the facts of the atomic weight of something which causes something which is the center of what? What is the point? Hassan, what on earth are you doing? Are you trying to prove the Quran, or are you trying to show us how good a chemist you are? What?
No. I'm not saying how good the chemist I am. Yeah, this is something. I'm not a chemist. I'm not trying to say I'm a chemist. This is something I've discovered as well, like from knowledge. People pass me message, knowledge is miracles and all that, like of the Quran, and I'm passing it off.
Okay, and what are you proving by doing that?
No, this is just science. It's one of the scientific proofs.
What is scientific about saying there is iron? Iron is everywhere. Iron, everything on this planet has been formed from outside the universe. So everything on this planet, including you, was formed from outside of this planet, just like iron. What are you proving? Why do you need to prove the Quran anyway?
No, it's just no. For the atheists, for scientific, we have to prove to them scientifically that the Quran is from Allah. For an atheist,
you're not. You fail because it's not
scientific.
How's
that a system of faith?
Sorry. The Quran's not just about faith. Some people do it for faith, some for philosophical reasons, some for scientific reasons. It depends on the person.
Okay. Well,
what is scientific about this?
Because they discovered like there's iron in the center of the earth, just that is in the center of the Quran. The chapter's called the iron. It's the way God.
What's scientific about this?
I think it'd be a little bit more convincing if chapter book 2 of the Quran wasn't al-Baqarah, but like al-Helium, or I don't know what the appropriate. But anyway, I'm sorry. We're going to let you go, Hassan.
Okay, so take it.
Thank you for your participation. Please come back anytime. I hope that we weren't too uncivil. As always,
Nah,
things
sure,
get heated.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. That was all right, man.
Take care. Salam.
Hear of me again. Salam, man. Take care, man.
Bye. Okay, we're not going to ask you to dignify the stuff that he was talking about, but if you and Rash want to continue with what you're talking about, we do have several other callers lined up. So should we go straight to the other caller, or did you guys have more for each other with the exchanges you were having before we brought on the miracle? Because the miracle was a big hit. Everyone was just like spamming, talking about the miracle. Rash, if your mic's muted. He's not a chemist or a technician, it turns out. Rash, you back on us?
I think we've made our points. I mean, if the Rationalizer has other points, I can try to comment on those, but I don't have anything more to say.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please. Been quiet all day.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Mr. Akber, you are somebody who has knowledge not only of one madhab or one group of Muslims, but several. This is why we're picking your brain, and I think it's fascinating to be able to talk to somebody who has knowledge of this. So what interests me is how do you perceive the everyday rituals around Muslims depending on what group they are? If you look at, for example, Ahmadiyyas, and you look at whatever other group there is, do you see everyday differences in the rituals depending on what the scripture says, depending on what secondary texts you have regarding dressing of women, regarding of prayer rituals? Where does all that come from? Where do Ahmadiyyas, for example, get the notion from that women need to be covered, or whether your hands need to be the right hand over the left, and so on? Do you see difference between the different sects, cults, or groups?
That's a very good question. Very, very good question. This is why I believe that there are no real doctrinal sects in Islam. The sectarian divisions or the division in Islam are mostly historical and cultural. I had the chance to go and live in Oman, the Sultanate of Oman, for 2 years, where there is the Ibadi Muslims who are not Shia, who are not Muslim, and I had no problem praying with them or letting my hands down, or they did not have any problem whatsoever talking to me about doctrinal issues. So I do not believe that the divisions in Islam are doctrinal. They are historical and cultural. And one of the biggest problems, and I'm going to say this now, and I maybe again get a lot of stick for it. One of the biggest problems with Islam these days is that Arabic culture and the culture of Arabia was very early on ingrained in Islamic beliefs and in Islamic tradition, the way you wear the clothes and the way you treat women and things like that, which were part of Arabian culture, which have come to dominate Islam in this century. The same way the Ahmadiyya, their culture from India, it does affect a lot of things that they talk about doctrinal are not doctrinal. They are actually, their doctrine is very thin, very flimsy. Same thing for Shia and Sunni. Their differences are historical. Who won the war? Who did not win the war? Who died? Who did not die? Who was the wrong guy? Who was the good guy? If you look at it, they pray 5 times a day. They pray 5 times a day. They give zakah maybe a little bit off percentage-wise. They fast 30 days. They come to Hajj every year. They pray behind the Imam of the Kaaba. So there are really no doctrinal sects within Islam. It's all historical and cultural differences that have, I call this a business model. If you do not emphasize your differences with other people, you cannot build your own little shop, for lack of a better word. And this is very pronounced in Pakistan and India, where if you belong to a certain madhab, you cannot go to a mosque that belongs to the other madhab, because if you leave your hands on your side, or if you fold your hands on your chest, you will be kicked out of the mosque and you may actually get physically assaulted. When I was in the Arab world, or in Morocco or Egypt or Oman or UAE, I never saw that. Anybody could come into any mosque and pray whichever way they wanted to pray. Yes, there might be a couple of strange looks or glances from other people, but nobody ever questioned you which madhab you belong to and which doctrine you belong to. So the Islamic divisions, again, are cultural and historical. They are very rarely doctrinal. Even the four big Sunni madahibs and the three big Shia madahibs have almost the same doctrine. One God, Muhammad as the messenger, one Quran, 5 prayers, 2.something% zakah, and 30 fast of Ramadan, 2 Eids, and 1 Hajj. So I don't see, it is not the type of doctrinal differences that exist between the Catholic Church and the Russian Orthodox Church, or the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. Those are real doctrinal differences, but that is not the case in Islam. I hope that answers your question.
It does to a certain extent, but then why do we have Iran and Iraq fighting each other tongue and nail?
Yeah, so religion has always been used by political powers. If you look at England, the whole Anglican Church came up because Henry VIII wanted to break away from the Catholic Church because they wouldn't allow him to marry somebody else or divorce somebody else. So religion is a tool. Iran and Iraq are fighting each other because the political power-hungry people on both sides are using religion. See, we human beings are not trained to kill each other. We're not born to kill each other. We have to be doctrinated, whether that's in a military academy or whether that is in a madrasa, or whether that is with the promise of healthcare, or that is with the promise of virgins in heaven. Human beings have to be doctrinated to kill. So when religion is used by political powers to kill each other, they can use any reason in the world. If you look at the Iraq of Saddam Hussein, or if you look at other countries where Shia and Sunni have lived together in peace for many, many years, or even look at Syria and Egypt, where Christians and Muslims have lived in peace for many generations, you can easily see that religious divide is used by political powers to inculcate in young men the will to go and kill other people. It's not the other way around. It is not the religion that forces you to go out and kill. It is the lust for political power that uses religion to kill other human beings.
Okay, so religion is a tool in the hands of the politicians.
It has always been a tool, right from the dawn of humanity. Religion is a good tool to regulate society, but
okay.
if it is used for the wrong purposes, it can be used by politicians to kill other human beings.
As with everything. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to see. Darn, our guests have gotten impatient and gone offline. We had one gentleman with the screen name Benjamin Dover from Poop, Pakistan. Obviously a troll, but I just wanted to bring him on to see what he'd do. But he got impatient, he went offline. Okay, go ahead while I try to see who's left among our guests.
Was that Ben Dover?
Yeah, Ben Dover from Poop. I asked him, I said, so how's the weather in Poop? And he
dark.
Akber.
Your mic's really quiet, Rash.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was just wondering, I don't know if Akber's still there or not. I can't see any video.
Yeah.
You talked about religion being a tool that politicians can use, and obviously this tool is a very effective one if you want people not only to kill other people, but be willing to risk their life at very, very unfavourable odds in order to attain the goal of the politician. What do you think it is about religion that makes it such an effective tool to be manipulated in the cause of evil?
Religion, because we human beings are not computers. We have evolved through evolution to be a bit generalizing and a bit irrational. If you look at human evolution and how we survived through the times of drought in East Africa, the early human beings, you would see that it is part of our evolution that we tend to generalize things, and we are not completely computer. We don't function completely like a computer. We look at omens. We feel good. We feel bad. We feel confident. We feel shy. There's so many emotional and irrational things about human beings. And this is where religion comes in to regulate those emotions and those things that make us human. Those same religion can be used to exploit that irrationality of human beings, or that emotional level of human beings to do certain things that they would not otherwise do. So again, religion, like anything in life, is a double-sided coin, is a double-sided sword. It is very good for human society, but at the same time, it can be exploited for those same reasons. So generally, I've made my point clear that religion does play with human emotions. It is a good antidote to our irrational, emotional nature, but at the same time, it can also exploit the inbuilt emotional feelings of human beings and the tribal and irrational feelings that human beings have. I mean, if it was Spock from Star Wars, I'm sure Spock would not...
Oh, boy. You're lucky I don't just boot you off right now. Spock was from Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Sorry, Star Trek.
You know nothing about our belief system. I read the Hadiths. You could read the Skeptic's Guide to Star Trek. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm going to bring on. Okay, we've had a couple of people who got impatient. We had a bunch of callers lined up. I'm going to bring in Oliver, who's coming in under his real name. So hopefully this is legit. He had a question about Shiism and the connection between the Iranian regime and Assad. Call failed. Oh, this. Wait, maybe no.
I'm curious. Have you ever written down an objective list of criteria which you think defines a cult? Not whether it makes it a separate religion or not, but whether it qualifies any kind of group belief system as a cult.
Yeah, so Dr.
bullet points, and then run each of them against Ahmadiyism, against Islam in general, against Christianity, and basically run it against all of them. And have you objectively decided that Islam is the only one that it does not apply to? That Islam doesn't qualify as cult status?
Yeah. So yes, when I left the Ahmadiyya, I actually studied the person, a scientist who was instrumental in the definition of cults. So there have been a lot of people who have put together a list of criteria, and Dr. Robert Clifton is one that is considered an authority. You can look him up on the internet, Robert J. Clifton, and he's done a theory of thought reform, and those are generally the criteria which are used to define what a cult is. It's milieu control, mystical manipulation, demand for purity, confession, sacred science, loading the language, doctrine over person, and dispensing of existence. Now, these are very sociological terms, but this is the criteria that he has defined. I will not say that Islam was a cult, just like I would not say that Catholicism or Lutheranism or Buddhism are cults, because there is, in addition to your criteria, that they are bigger in size, they don't have the capability to control. Yes, that may be a positive thing, or that may be just the evolution of that in order to become big, I mean, it may be the cause or it may be the effect, that in order to become bigger, you have to let go of people. You have to let different thoughts flourish, or you have to give a bit of space to people. So when you said that every religion starts as a cult, and then slowly, because they become too big to control, you're saying that is the effect of becoming too big. I would say that is the cause, because unless a small organization like David Koresh or that the LDS, the branch Davidians or other such cults, they will not ever become bigger, because once they open the gates, once they open the floodgates, once they let people into mainstream society, they would be finished off. So if a religion can survive in the mainstream community by doing business, by educating themselves, by opening universities, by running countries, by having states, then yes, they are not a cult, because they do not control their people. So it's a cause-effect thing. I think you're saying that it's the effect of being bigger removes the cult label from a new religion. But I would say it's the opposite. By having a pluralistic, accommodating, universal approach to life, in this world, you are not a cult, so you can grow. I will give you an example. If you look at I don't remember the name, the Texas cult, who was a branch of the Mormon Church, where this guy was having sex with young girls, and they used to drive all the men off of their community. What was the name of that?
There's a lot of them that are like that.
Yeah. As soon as they drop the walls, they would not be able to survive. They will not be able to survive when they break down those walls. The same thing for the Ahmadiyya. If they can survive independently as a doctrine, so be it. I wish them the best. But if they cannot survive as a separate doctrine or as a separate religion without having these thought walls around their followers, then yes, they are a cult. So thought control and isolation, I believe, are the out of the 8 or 9 criteria of being a cult, those are that is the one major cult. So Muhammad ﷺ did not ever say to his followers, don't go out to this world, stay within Medina, don't engage in arguments with the Christians. I mean, I'm here. I have offered to debate the Ahmadiyya on any forum, wherever. I mean, I invite you to invite them to your show and let us debate among ourselves. But as soon as they hear my name, they just go away. So this is a sign of being cult. We were invited by Radio 4, BBC Radio 4, last month, called me and said the Ahmadiyya are complaining about discrimination in the UK. And I said, fantastic. I would love to talk to them. But as soon as BBC Radio 4 went to the Ahmadiyya and said that Akber Chaudhry would like to talk to you, they said, no, sorry, we don't have time. We'll do it after the Olympics and so on. So this is what a cult is all about. They are not free to express their opinion, and they are walled in. And as soon as they remove those walls, they will either survive or they will completely disintegrate. And I will give you a very good example, Mr. Rationalizer. The Ahmadiyya divided into 2 parts in 1914. So in 1914, they divided into the Lahori group and they divided into the Qadiani group. The Lahori group did not remain.
Points as they come up instead of you filibustering?
Wait, Oliver, excuse me. That's extremely rude. First of all, we're getting some background noise from you.
5 solid minutes.
Yeah, well, it's fine. He's the guest. Okay, we're going to go. First of all, Samuel has reestablished connection. We were getting a little bit of background noise from you, Oliver. Please use good mic discipline. Samuel, we'll try your comment again. The last time you were on, the sound quality wasn't very good. We weren't able to understand what it was you were saying. So we'll see if you can get your question out, and then I'm actually going to hang up so we can move on to Oliver, who's also here. So, Samuel, please go ahead with your question or comment.
Okay. My question is, what is the similarity between Ahmadism and Islamism? That's my question. I'm trying to portray a picture here where the Indians believe more the differences. The war on Islam and the war of Atheism are quite on a different parallel lines. So I just want to know what is the similarity between Atheism and the Islamism. I hope you got me.
I'm not familiar with what you're comparing Islamism to. I'm not.
Okay, sorry. I think he's saying Ahmadism, but he's pronouncing the H with an accent, and it comes out as Ahmadism with a strong H.
Oh.
So, okay, I will attempt to answer this question and also reply to the Rationalizer. So, if you look at the Ahmadiyya history, you see that in 1914 they split into two parts. The bigger part was the Lahori part, and the smaller part was the Qadiani group. The Lahori group, they interact with Muslims, they pray with Muslims, they marry among Muslims, and they have completely been almost wiped out. They're almost now non-existing. They've been absorbed into the mainstream Islamic community. Whereas the Qadiani people, the group, they constructed a cult wall around themselves. And when we talk about Ahmadiyya these days, we mean the Qadiani Ahmadiyya, who are the bigger group. And they've only survived because they've drawn a wall around themselves. So I would say to you, Mr. Rationalizer, is that you can define a cult if they cannot survive without a walled compound. If they can survive without a walled compound, they are a legitimate religion. But if they cannot survive without a mental or physical walled compound, then they are not a cult. So coming back to the question of what is the difference between Ahmadiyya and other religions, Ahmadiyya, the Qadiani Ahmadiyya believes their founder to be a new prophet, and as soon as you say that there has been a new prophet who has brought some new guidance or message from God, whether he has brought or not brought or has said something, you are basically saying whatever was there before requires to be updated with a new message. And as soon as you have that, you become a new religion, and you must have all the rights and all the rights and all the what we call obligations and all the freedom of being a new religion. If you believe in a monkey god or if you don't believe in a god, you should have all the freedom in the world to believe in whatever you want to believe. But you cannot claim to be a Muslim and then campaign against the Muslims for not accommodating you when you've yourself isolated yourself from the mainstream community.
So it seems like the primary dispute is that they won't relinquish the brand name of Islam, which is interesting because we were talking about cults earlier, and I wanted to bring this up. People always say don't drink the Kool-Aid in reference to Jonestown. Did you know it was actually Flavor Aid made by a company and I really feel, Kool-Aid is owned by Kraft Foods, And Flavor Aid, which was actually used to poison the, not, well, it itself wasn't the poison was added to it. It's amazing that they haven't gone on some kind of a campaign saying, you know...
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Samuel, you had more?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yeah, what, I can hear you. What you guys are saying, I'm not actually getting in terms of graphical pictures. What? Hello?
Yeah, it sounds okay. It sounds. Are you, Samuel? Are you watching the Blog TV channel while you're also on the Skype call?
If you are, you need.
I'm on Skype call.
Okay, because if you have Blog TV open, you might want to shut that down because it'll cause an echo if that's what's happening.
Akber, one of the things that you said was about these.
Okay, can you hear me?
Not allowing people to come into contact with criticism. Was that right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'd like to draw your attention
Hello?
to
yes. Hold on, Samuel.
140. It says, it's already come down to you in the book that you hear the verses of Allah, and they are denied by them and ridiculed. Do not sit with them until they enter into a different conversation. And 6:68 says, and when you see those who engage in offensive discourse concerning our verses, turn away from them until they enter into another conversation. So, yet again, one of your criteria of defining a cult, that it doesn't allow you to participate in criticism of that belief system, is explicitly prohibited in the Quran itself. So, I think quite unquestionably qualifies under your criteria of a cult once again.
Okay, so I think the criteria there in the Quranic verses, if that's of civility, do not sit with people who make fun or mockery, because you cannot have a civilized conversation unless you refrain from mockery, which we are now discussing in a very civil manner, and we have not used certain epithets about each other. And you're right, sometimes Muslims do use some derogatory words for the Ahmadiyya when they engage them. I have had the only live debates on TV with the Ahmadiyya, and one of the things you can go see my videos is to engage in a civil discourse. So I think what Islam is saying, what the Quran is saying, is not do not talk or do not face criticism, but it's saying do not engage with people who make a mockery of the verses or who use a mocking language, because once you start using mocking language, you cannot have a dialogue. You become emotionally... so I think there's a slight disconnect between not engaging in conversation. I'm here as a Muslim engaging in conversation with you, and Muslims throughout history have never shied away from engaging in civil conversation, but not a mockery. So I think that's what the verse is trying to say.
668 doesn't actually specify any kind of offence. It just says that when you see those who engage in discourse concerning the verses. Now, what it's encouraging people to do is effectively not listen. It's threatening them that if they do listen, they'll become like them and they'll go to hell. Now, I think that there's definitely a big difference between a small community controlling the actions of people, a small cult controlling the actions of people, and a large cult, which is what I see a religion as, which controls the mental process of the believer. And that control is the person themselves becomes their own critic, and they believe that if they think the wrong things, that they will end up being tortured horrifically for all eternity. And what successful religions do is not only do they have other members chastising them for discretions, such as marrying the wrong person or not doing the right things like praying and so on, they also get the believer to chastise themselves I fear that I'm going to be burnt for all eternity if I listen to these people disagreeing with the Quran. I might end up thinking like them, and then I will end up in hell. I mean, that is just another form of mental control. And,
yeah, I would not. Yeah, I would not agree with your observation there, because if you look at 668, the word there is Jahuduna. فَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ جَحُودُونَ. Jahuduna means vain discourse, mockery. Doesn't mean educated discourse. And if you were correct in your observation, then there would not be a legacy of conversation, discourse, debate among Muslims. But you see that right from the beginning of Islam up to now, I'm talking to you for so many years, Muslims have never shied away from debating Christians, Jews, or even among themselves. They are always willing to come and talk. So I would not agree with your interpretation of this verse, because the word Yahuduna, as translated by Pickthall and Yusuf Ali, and even the Arabic word itself, implies a negative connotation. It is not a positive debate. And historically, Islam and Muslims, scholars, and everybody else have never shied away from a civilized conversation on their faith.
Yeah, it does seem to be an idle talk rather than an offensive one. It's some form of idle talk. I will just point out the flaw in your logic there, that if it really said that Muslims wouldn't debate with people, I'll just refer back to something you said earlier about Muhammad not having sex with a 9-year-old girl. If Muhammad didn't have sex with a 9-year-old girl, some Muslims in the world wouldn't believe it's okay to have sex with 9-year-olds. You can apply the same logic. You can't say, because Muslims do this, therefore the Quran can't possibly say you can't. You can't use that logic, because people do invariably use their own interpretation of what verses mean and what scriptures mean.
Both of you hold that thought. I want Samuel to have a parting comment, and then we're going to let him go. Samuel? Are you still with us?
Hello, Samuel?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Did you have more to say?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, I quite disagree with what hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I quite disagree with what one of the audience, the speaker is trying to say, like the Muslim Islam or the Islamic. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Keep going.
Yeah, I quite disagree with what he was trying to say, that the Islam actually tries to like correlate itself with the Western education. The way I see it, they kind of like shy away from such discipline. They feel like the Western education and the discipline itself are of what they practice. And in that regard, I quite disagree with that. They actually shy away from it. They fought so much, or fought in their belief that the Western education or other religions are not what it should be. What it should be. They felt like its own idea, the idea in quotes, of the what they are in instances. They are the main culture of belief. So I quite disagree with what they're trying to say. The speaker is trying to say there.
Okay. Well, thank you for your call, Samuel. I'm going to let you go. Take care. We'll see you around. Come back anytime. Did you want to respond to that quickly before we move on to Oliver, Mr. Chaudhry?
Yeah, respond to whose question?
Samuel had a comment. I believe the thrust of it was that. He essentially is of the side of the rational. Rationalizer is making a liturgical argument. Samuel was speaking anecdotally about his own experience, saying that from his, if I understood him correctly, that he didn't think Muslims, he thought Muslims didn't engage or avoided discussion and debate.
Yeah, so again, there is a strong tradition of debate in the Islamic, throughout Islamic history. So if the mainstream Islamic community were not to interpret these verses as meaning there is no debate with other people, then we would not see that in history. So one of the problems I have with Robert Spencer and Pamela Geller, I don't know how to.
I think it's Geller, but it doesn't matter.
Geller, yeah, and other such people is that I call them half brain. They never look at the discourse through history. So if you take and the followers of Islam and Muslims cannot say the same things about Judaism and Christianity. We cannot make a mockery of those religions because we believe in those religions and the truthfulness of those religions. So we have a handicap here that I cannot go out and criticize Judaism or Christianity based on what is in the Bible or in Exodus or in Leviticus or in Deuteronomy, whereas they can take bits and pieces out of the Quran and the Hadith. So what I would say to such things is that there is a history. There is a 1400-year history of Islam which is documented, which is available, and if those things that you take out of a Hadith or you take out of a Quranic verse and you apply 21st century perspective to it, it may not make sense. But if you put it in the perspective of that day and age, or if you look at the practice of Islam over the 1400 years, so I would not see a single instance in Islamic history where a Muslim scholar has said, do not shy away, do not engage Christians or Jews or other religions in debate. But obviously, like you said to me when I started here, that we will keep it civilized and we'll keep it honest and we'll keep it, I think that's what's meant there. If there was any implication to not engage other people. Now, if you come to the Ahmadiyya, if you come to other cults, they will never allow you to go and openly debate. I've offered the Ahmadiyya, they've accepted my offer twice to come and debate the theological arguments or the doctrinal arguments of their faith, and yet they would not come and do it,
Okay, so we're going to move on to Oliver. Thank you for being patient. What did you have for us? Are you still there, mate?
That's fun.
Oh, as soon as he comes back, we'll address him. So, Rash or Stop, did you want to... Stop, you haven't talked in a while. What do you think about anything?
It's raining. No, nothing.
It's raining? Is it raining in Poop, Pakistan? Rash, you had more.
No, I've not really got more. I just generally throughout the conversation see criteria that, if applied objectively, because you don't care what the answer is, does apply to Islam as a whole and the Ahmadiyya. It does, I agree, apply to Ahmadiyya to a greater extent, but I think that that's not uncommon for an offshoot religion, because when it's in its infancy, it's got to control its followers more closely in order to develop and prosper, because it's got to last long enough in order to indoctrinate the children and have them pass it on as a true belief. It's just a very standard thing. As the religion becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, you don't need to impose as many strict social constraints on people, because people have grown up accepting that it's the truth for so long, and there are so many other people around them that believe it's true that gives it credibility to them, that what they do is, rather than just looking at it and saying, you know what, there actually isn't any reason that I should believe this is true, they feel that it's true without knowing why, and then try to rationalise it against their own beliefs, and every individual comes up with their own unique version of their religion, and offshoots come about because people in small geographical areas or small groups, families or whatever, tend to share the same opinions because they've, surprise, surprise, grown up with the same morality that they project onto their religion, and that's how you form little groups. And when these small groups are close together, they all go under the bigger umbrella, and then as time goes on, they separate off into smaller and smaller groups. And I mean, you know, there's nothing in Islam that I see that didn't start in exactly the same way as every other religion that's a derivative of other religions. It's just not exceptional in the slightest.
Stop or Mr. Chaudhry, would you like to come back to what Rash said?
Yeah, I agree with him to some extent, but and I would not agree that Ahmadiyya is a separate religion and they have the full right, and I encourage them to survive and thrive as a separate religion. They should not have to draw a wall around themselves. And when they split in 1914, as I've said before, the group that did not draw a wall just became absorbed into the mainstream Islamic community, because there is not a distinct quantum jump in theology. So if you see Judaism or Abraham, there was a quantum leap. And then when Isa alayhi salam or Jesus came into the picture, there was another quantum leap. And then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes in and he has a quantum leap. The Ahmadiyya do not have that big a quantum leap that they will be able to survive as a separate religion. And if you look at the group that splintered off in 1914, which was the bigger group at that time, it completely became absorbed within the mainstream. And the group that evolved itself mentally, cults, did not. So,
there wasn't a massive quantum leap. Muhammad didn't come with anything absolutely revelational. Muhammad basically came into an environment where there were Jews, Christians, and people that believed in the evil eye and smokeless fire beings called jinn and things like this. Came into this environment of mixed religions and superstitions, where people circumambulate around the Kaaba, they walk between the two hills, they kiss the black stone, they fast, they drink from this well, and he took all of the stuff that was popular in that specific area, and all of the most popular stuff, he made up a story that tied it all together, and then that became popular. He didn't come out with loads of stuff that no one had ever heard of before. He basically went round to all the people saying, there's a big group of you that believe that. You're right. Well, you're almost right. Just a few small adjustments. It's one God you've got to believe in. But other than that, yeah, jinn, they exist, yeah. And that's basically exactly what he did. There was no huge quantum leap. It was all he did is successfully merge different superstitions from different groups which had already been culturally blended in the belief of the people of that region, obviously excluding people who were adherent to specific religions. But I mean, isn't it amazing how brilliantly accurate these Arabs had got God's will? You know, these Arabs who would form raiding parties and go off and raid other people and then take their women and use them as sex slaves. And lo and behold, Allah says that that's perfectly fine. So it's almost as if Allah chose the only people on the entire planet who didn't need a messenger at the exact point that they didn't need the messenger, and said, hey everyone, 99% right, well done, a few little corrections, and then we'll just spread this out through the entire world. Muhammad did nothing revelational. All he did was successfully convince a lot of people that they were already right, and that their opinion is worth more than other people's opinions, because the person, well, the entity whose opinion matters most anywhere, that created the entire universe, agrees with them. So that is proof that they're right and everyone else is wrong. He did absolutely nothing.
Well, can I first we'll continue with what you two have to say. We're going to move on to Oliver just a second. But I do have to share this. I just had the epiphany of a lifetime. I should publish this theological dissertation. The talk of quantum leaps has made me realize something very important. We talked about how Muslims don't believe that the part about Jesus being crucified was accurate because someone else was crucified in his place. But I've never really gotten a satisfactory answer from a Muslim about who the person was who supposedly died in Jesus' place on the cross. But the talk of quantum leaps has made me realize it was Scott Bakula.
Okay, so...
wait, I'm sorry, Mr. Chaudhry, we're going to move on to Oliver's question, but we will let, obviously you and Rash have a running dialogue. We won't leave you without a chance to defend yourself in the face of what he said, but I would like to move on to what Oliver said.
Sorry, hello?
Yes, we're with us. Thank you for calling. What do you have for us today?
Hi there. I watched part 5 of University's Arab Spring project, and I was quite interested in what he said about the Shiite crescent, and this is the reason why Iran wants to keep the Assad regime in Syria, to keep Shiite crescent power. I can't remember the reason, so I was wondering if you could fill me in. It was something like that crescent needs to be in place before the day of judgment can come. And that's all I can remember.
Well, your quality was quite bad, but I'll just reiterate what you typed to me in text. You were asking about the role that Iran was playing in the Syrian uprising and backing the Assad regime. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but I know what the deal is there. I'm just interested in the motivation for it, which is apparently the Shiite crescent, which I only learned about a week ago.
Well, the ruling class. I'll just go ahead and answer this because this isn't like necessarily Mr. Chaudhry's specific domain. The Alawites are a sect that are form the ruling class of the Syrian regime as we know it now. Some people will refer to the Syrian government as secularists, but I think that's really quite far-fetched. You know what I mean? It seems like in some parts of the Arab world, if you wear a suit, you're a secularist, no matter how much your doctrine is rooted in a particular sect of religion. Actually, now that I think about it, this does tie into our topic because, of course, you have the Alawite sect. They are also a Shia sect. They are very distinct from the Twelvers, who are dominant in Iran, but they're still seen as allies to the Iranian regime against Sunni interests in the region. And so you have, this backing of proxies with Iran having, of course, famously Hezbollah operating out of Lebanon, which receives funds from Iran and backing, and then, of course, if the Syrian regime were to fall, almost no matter who takes what happens in the aftermath, it will be seen as a blow to Iran in the eyes of many of the other Sunni governments in the region. And then, of course, you have Iraq, which the aftermath of that, is seen as an encroachment by many Sunnis of Shia interests, because you have a Shia majority population that was, and now, of course, the Syrian government and the former Iraqi government were both Baathists, but there was Shia Baathists and Sunni Baathists, so it's all really quite convoluted when you get down to it. I mean, this is really why. One of the key reasons why the region is just so unpredictable. There's a lot of different overlapping alliances, but right now I think that a lot of the for example, you look at many of the Sunni governments who themselves are sort of manning the barricades against potential revolutions of their own people. Even some of these governments, like the Gulf states, are still backing the Syrian uprising because they will see it as a net gain for Sunni interests in the region. So you're seeing what happens like a lot in West Africa, where you have two countries next to each other that don't fight each other openly, but will alternately back each other's rebels. So it's all quite complicated and convoluted. But the Alawite sect, what they believe is really departed from what Muslims believe. I mean, with the internal rules of who is a Muslim and who isn't, depending on how strict you are with that criteria and how quick you are to declare takfir. I think that even, for example, it sounded, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Akber, but it sounded like, he accepts both mainstream Sunnah and Shia as Muslims, and doesn't consider the Shia to have apostated. But I think that even many Sunnah who accept mainstream, at least Twelver or Ismaili Shia, still would consider the Alawite doctrine to be too far removed, because like the Ahmadiyya, they have a personality that emerged after the Prophet who claimed to have some special position which, depending on how you look at it, might infringe upon, there's also some among the Alawites who believe, I think that Ali was an incarnation of some kind. So they have doctrine that clearly, crosses some boundaries. So I mean, I think we can all agree that the persecution and violence over these things is never justified. But in terms of the internal rules, I think that the Alawites are very far strayed from the rest of the herd. But I don't know if any of that lather that I just gave you answered any of your questions, but we'll give it back to the panel. I'm going to be up for a minute. Everyone, please play nice.
Yeah.
Someone else will have to talk, because I wasn't present, so I'm out of the loop at the moment.
Yeah, so I think he responded to Oliver's question, but coming back to quantum leap, let's assume that if we assume the problem with Christianity in the early part of the millennium was the Council of Nicaea, where they agreed that Trinity is going to be the official doctrine. Had it not been for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we would still be worshipping a Father God and a Son God and the Holy Ghost. So although you may consider the one God to be a small improvement, to me it is fundamentally changed the shape of the way the divine force was looked at.
There was already a group claiming that, though, wasn't there? The Gnostic Christians, well before Muhammad came,
exactly.
Jesus was merely a messenger, and they also said that he was not crucified, that he was just lifted up. There was an ascension to heaven. He wasn't crucified. People only believe he was crucified. So, as you say, you're claiming it's a quantum leap. Let's say massive leap, because quantum is a very small thing. And you keep saying quantum leap, I will say yes, very small leap. So there was no massive leap there.
Okay, that's fine. It was a distinct.
He didn't come along and say something that no one had heard before. He just took something that Gnostics were saying and said, in this case, the Gnostics are right. So what did Muhammad bring that nobody believed at the time?
Okay, very good question. Very, very good question. And if you, there is a phrase in the Holy Quran that says, Millata Ibrahim, the nation of Abraham. So one of the prayers in the Quran says that I am following the religion of Abraham. So in fact, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was saying that he had come to revive the original monotheistic. It was a reaction to the Trinity and the ability to, and the campaign to revive Millata Ibrahim. And also, if you look at many Islamic prayers, Ibrahim alayhi salam is considered to be the father of Islam. In another verse in the Quran, it says Abu Ibrahim. He says, sorry, I don't want to say something wrong. Your father Abraham. So it was a reaction to the Trinity. You may be right in saying that there is not a theological concept as such that was new. One God was always there. 5 prayers. There were prayers in some form, whether they were 5 or 3 or 1 or 2. If you look at early Judaism and Christianity, they had a prayer in the morning and at night. And eventually you have Muhammad bringing all these things together into one whole that is now a viable whole that can then go out and spread into the world and be a counterweight to Christianity. Because if you go back to the 6th century, Christianity was so firmly established as a result of the Emperor Constantine and as a result of being the official religion of the Roman Empire, that had there not been a counterweight to Christianity, we would all be believing in a Trinity right now. So fasting was there before, Hajj was there before, so there isn't something drastically or radically new that he brought, except to combine all the best practices that were there and combine them to give you a form for the rest of time, you know. So this is what I believe Islam to be. So you and I agree more than we disagree, but I am really grateful to Muhammad for combating Trinity. It was a very hard thing for him to do. At the same time, he's saying Mary is to be respected. Isa, Jesus alayhi salam, is a prophet of God, but hold on, no son of God. So it may appear to be very simple, but as an activist myself, or a person who takes strong opinions or who moves away from the rational opinions, who moves away from the irrational opinions, it was very hard for a person to stand up in idol worshipping Arabia, at one side say Jesus is right, but on the other side say you Christians cannot have 3 gods, you know. So it may appear to be a very simplistic in the 21st century, but I believe at that time it was quite a strong thing for somebody to negate all the gods that the pagans had and embrace the God of Judaism, the God of Christianity, but at the same time tell them that no, you are wrong. So he was saying to his countrymen, you're wrong, and saying to Christianity, you're wrong. So there may not have been new groundbreaking as such, but it took a whole lot of courage from that man to be able to tell everybody, almost everybody in Arabia at that time, that you're wrong, you know.
To go back to the, Rash, before you come back, I'd like to go back to the guest comment before we let him go. Oliver, what Rash and Akber are talking about is very different from the question you raised. Did anything that I said address it sufficiently, or do you have more questions or comments regarding Syria and Iran or anything like that? Are you still with us?
Well, it made me wonder if what he goes. Yeah, hello.
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you now.
Yeah. What must be like? I think that what university had said was true in Japan's motivations being religiously motivated, whereas what you said gave me the impression it's just politically and strategically motivated. It was interesting, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, tying into what Akber was saying earlier, that religion and politics, they just go together like peanut butter and chocolate. I think that I would disagree with his characterization, though, in that even though anti-religious activism is my pet issue, I won't pretend like it's the only problem. I come across people who will say, "Oh well, you hardline anti-theists, you think that religion is the only issue, and if you solved it, things would be just a utopia." But nobody realistically believes that. No matter if you just passionately hate religion in all its forms, it's always a little bit more complicated. I just feel that the religion is a very powerful catalyst for political interests. I mean, even since ancient times, you have the mixing of religion and politics. You go back to just like Constantine, for example, who, according to the most commonly told version of the story, he didn't actually convert to Christianity until his deathbed, which makes it look like he was just using Christians as or sort of riding a wave of Christian populism to consolidate his forces versus his pagan enemies and so forth. You go back even further, there were internal conflicts in the Roman Empire between sun cults from Persia and the domestic Greco-Roman pantheon, and you had a lot of people who were very passionate and true believers, and you had other people who were very opportunistic and changed religions. So I mean, let's face it, religion as a societal entity, it's ripe for the picking for people who have unscrupulous political motives, it's never quite as simple as one or the other. But a lot of the, like in the case of the Sunni bloc versus the Shia bloc, religion drew these lines in the first place. The sectarian division drew these lines, and now you have, instead of just individual nations kicking each other under the table, you have whole leagues of them, which makes for a far more volatile situation. So, I would say that it's just a negative influence across the board, but that's just my opinion. I'm going to let you go for now. Thank you for your comment. I'm actually glad that you raised that, because Syria obviously is in the news quite a bit these days. So I think people probably use some background information about it. Take care. Okay, so we have a bunch of more people lined up. I'm going to bring in DPR Jones on his Magic Sandwich Show account. Akber, he's going to talk briefly about the charity drive, which is coming up very soon. It's for Doctors Without Borders, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with them, what kind of charities have you been involved with? Do you go mostly with Muslim charities that operate off zakat?
I'm quite a liberal person in that regard. I would contribute to any charity that I thought was worthwhile. One of my best friends is a doctor for Doctors Without Borders.
Oh, great.
Médecins Sans Frontières in French. And he's been to Nigeria. He spent 3 months there. So, I mean, any good cause, and this is what I would like to advise my Islamic brothers as well, that do not think of the word as us versus them. That division doesn't work. Yes, you should give your zakat. You should give your obligatory zakat to the worthwhile causes. But if you see a cause other than it's Islamic causes, and you have the means to contribute further to the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, to Doctors Without Borders, please do. I would also have recommended in the past that they contribute to Amnesty and other such institutions, but they have become very political these days, so it's up to each person to recommend or not to recommend.
Oh, that was great. Kudos to your friend for helping MSF. That's great. What a tie-in. Small world.
Yeah.
DPR, are you with us?
I am indeed. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you for joining us.
Good.
Go for it.
I'm terribly sorry. It's raining very heavily here, and when that happens, when that happens, my internet connection does become somewhat faulty. But can I just begin by echoing and endorsing the sentiments expressed by your guest? MSF is an absolutely wonderful charity that displays no discrimination in the work that it does, which is currently taking place in I think over 66 countries in the world. They do not discriminate on political grounds, religious grounds, race grounds, or whatever. So that's one of the reasons that I have been supporting this for the last 3 years. And of course, 2 weeks' time, we have the 4th 24-hour event in support of the charity. And I first want to give a shout out to your show, because you will be actually part of that event. Have you got anything in particular lined up for it?
We're gonna kind of go with the flow. Obviously, it's kind of you're getting a bunch of skeptics and atheists together, and then we're trying to talk about not atheism and skepticism, which I think is always a challenge for us.
No, I'm not suggesting that. The only thing that I've always been acutely aware of is not to advertise the event as an atheist event, because I think that just alienates people. It's obviously the case that the majority of the people on the show are atheists, but the charity itself does not discriminate, nor should the event, and that's always been my opinion. In no promotional material anywhere in the last 4 years, I would challenge anyone to find anywhere that I've promoted it as an atheist event. And indeed, the second host on the show is actually Together for Peace. Now, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm aware, he's the only overtly atheist person on the show. But let me just quickly, if I may, and thank you for the opportunity. It takes place in 2 weeks' time. It starts at 4 p.m. UK time. There is a schedule available. There are a couple of gaps in that, which we're still waiting for some people to get back to me. It's likely to change slightly over the course of the next 2 weeks. Information about this you can get. I'm actually writing an update for the website at the moment, but you can get it from the Magic Sandwich Show website, which, if you look above the chat box on Blog TV, you'll see a link to that. So if you go there, bookmark it or do the RSS link thing, hopefully within a couple of hours, but certainly there'll be an update, but certainly over the next couple of weeks there'll also be updates posted there. Can I give, please, a call out, though, for anyone that may have anything that they could offer on to be auctioned on eBay? Over the last 3 years, about 25% of the money that we have raised has come from items auctioned on eBay. Whatever it is, you'd be surprised what people will pay for it. If you have anything, please, again, either go to my latest video on YouTube, or again check up on the website in a few hours' time or in the next few days. All the links will be there. But as I say, 25% of income has come from items auctioned, and as long as it doesn't breach terms of service of eBay or bring the charity into disrepute, we'll be more than happy. We will do all the work for you. All we need is details of what you're offering. Everything else, putting it onto the eBay page, all the admin we do for you. The only thing that you'll have to do is eventually put it in the post and send it to the person that's purchased it. And I know that Rationalizer has got a very wonderful thing that he's offering up, and I know that he wants to explain, because there's an update on that.
You're muted, Rash. Start over.
Can you hear me yet?
Yes. Oh, well, wonderful.
Well, whilst Rash is working out his microphone, can I just go back to a point that was raised? And I was one of those people that was gagging for the miracle in the Quran.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I heard it correctly. It was said that book 57, which was in the middle of the Quran,
yes,
sort of like it was called iron, and we now know that iron. And he, despite the fact that he continually referred to molten iron, it's not molten, it is solid. But did he also say that the atomic number of iron was 57 as well?
No, that was Rash's. Yeah.
Okay.
Go on, you can still correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
I don't mind being wrong.
The atomic weight was very close.
No, I thought that he was. Yeah, it's one off. But I was looking at the chapters of the Quran, and I noticed that 53 was a star, and that's not in the middle, so I didn't know what to make of that. And book 54 was the moon, so I didn't know what to make of that.
Then there's gold and silver. Where do they come? You know, they're in the third chapter. That means that they're somewhere near the dirt. You know, there's no consistency to it. Therefore, I wouldn't attribute any value to it at all.
I mean, it's somewhat desperate. I had a sketchy reading of book 57, and I have to say that it, at least the beginning, looked as if it was yet again a pretty shabby plagiarization of earlier works, in particular the Bible. But just to make myself sound incredibly intelligent, there are 4 isotopes of iron. You've got iron 54, 56, 57, and 60. And the centre of the Earth is made up 90% of isotope 56. Now, if that makes me sound intelligent, let me shatter all such illusions. All it means is I've got Thunderfoot's Skype address, and I messaged him, and asked him what the answers were. So all of those answers come from him. So I'm not clever. But no, I just thought the atomic weight point had been made, but I misunderstood it. Anyway, Rationalizer wanted to talk about his book.
I think it would be far more impressive if in chapter 79 of the Quran it said explicitly, this is the first mention of gold. People in the future will be really, really impressed by this for reasons
I think it would be much more impressive in the Book of Iron if it said the center of Earth is a solid core made up of isotopes of iron, 90% of which is iron 56, 6% 54, 2% each of the other two. Now that would be impressive. And why? I'm sorry. Why is it that the creator of the heavens and the earth and everything cannot actually communicate? Why could he not simply just say that?
Well, we need to get Akber's comment on this. I don't expect you to defend an argument that you didn't make, but I'm just serious because I know a long time ago when we started the show we had another gentleman named Hassan on, and he said that back when he was a Muslim he never thought anything of the scientific miracle things. But I would say to DPR about the solid core. I'm pretty sure if we took a cursory look at the Quran or the Hadiths, I could find, something that said, okay, well, how solid the earth is, or there's that verse about the mountains making the earth not move. There's probably some verse that we could say, okay, well, here it refers to the solid, stalwart nature of the earth, and that could be a prediction of the iron core. Now, of course, I don't think that would be, but I'm just saying that I could do the same thing that they're doing. I could do the word find puzzle and find things.
So, in my opinion, these stories that come up from time to time about certain numerical miracles in the Quran and things like that. There was a numerical miracle of 19. There was a whole book by Rashad Khalifa on that. And this. If you cannot make a scientific discovery after reading something in the Quran, it did not originate from the Quran. So please do not retrofit, I would say to Muslims, do not retrofit something that science has discovered back onto the Quran. I am only happy knowing that the Quran does not say something completely irrational or completely opposite to what science says. Again, I know I can see the rationalizer here, saying there may be a dispute with that, but I do not see anything in the Quran that completely negates what science has discovered, and science will continue to evolve. So, this is you have to understand that a lot of the Muslims in the world right now are not very literate, and the scholars are doing a big disservice by trying to relate such numerical, what you call them, numerical sequences or numerical coincidences with certain scientific discoveries. But again, being a very rational book and being a rational faith, if you look at Islamic history, they embraced every scientific discovery there was in the Middle Ages. In fact, they contributed to a lot of scientific discoveries. So it is not like the Roman Catholic Church that would say to Galileo, no, you will be hanged because you've said something that goes against the Bible. That will not happen in Islam, but at the same time, it is not sufficient, or it is not quite absolutely convincing to go back and say this happened in the Quran or this did not happen in the Quran.
I certainly agree with the first part of your statement about retrofitting. I'm not going to go into a lengthy detail about everything I think is wrong in the Quran, because we'd be here for weeks. You're saying that it agrees with all the scientific things, discoveries since, and so on. I'm not going to go into a discussion about evolution. All I want to say is I'm sure that you're aware that many Muslims will say that evolution is false. We don't share common ancestors with apes. We're not apes ourselves because the Quran says we're not. Whether you think the Quran says we're not or not, I don't really mind. Whether you think evolution is genuine or not, I don't really mind. But what I am saying is there are clearly a lot of people that believe that evolution is false because of the Quran, and there are clearly a higher percentage of scientists that believe that evolution is a fact. I'll probably leave it at that, I think.
Yeah, but you see, the debate over evolution is much of an American evangelistic Christian debate. What I was trying to say is that there isn't anything in the Quran that forces me to not believe anything that scientists have discovered. I don't see a contradiction. That is not the same as saying that I see a complete congruence. No, I don't. I agree with you. But again, at the same time, I do not see anything in the Quran that forces me to choose either between my faith or between science, as at one point in time, Roman Catholics were forced to choose between Galileo and their church. So I have never seen Muslim scientists or an educated Muslim person say that if he believes in evolution, he would be going against Islam. So there is not a 180 degrees contradiction between science and Islam. Well, yes, obviously people would need to, people do believe in certain things, and they may be wrong. I mean, for myself, I completely believe in evolution. I'm not sure about the speciation side of evolution, how that occurs, and even scientists are not very clear on what are the criteria by which one species gain a quantum leap or a speciation into another species. So there are still outstanding answers. But if God says in the Quran that everything originated from water, every living thing originated from water, that is enough for me to say that there is no contradiction between what the Quran says and what scientists say, you know.
That's not what the Quran actually says.
Okay, what is the verse?
Yeah, go on.
It says that all living things are made from water.
I must say, if I can just chip in very quickly, I found the comments, and I'm totally sorry, I don't know your name, I'll refer to you as the guest. I found your comments somewhat refreshing, and it reminded me of the professor who debated Hamza Sortsis a few months ago, who again said that there was no contradiction between the Quran and science. What I find disturbing, and I think what you identified, is that when people try and pick out science from the Quran, it is a somewhat desperate and normally untruthful representation.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm just trying to find this reference here. I completely agree that yes, if you try to retrofit, or if you try to say that this discovery was contained in the Quran, then the onus of proof is on you then to go and, having read the Quran, go and make that scientific discovery. So if you cannot stumble upon a scientific truth just from the Quran, that means that Quran is not defining the scientific truth in it. Quran is defining the principles that do not contradict. So far, I've studied science a lot in my life. So far, I do not see anything where I would have to choose between being a Muslim or between a rational scientist, you know?
You know, it's funny, you said that you were sort of, I guess, foggy on the issue of speciation. I've heard similar statements from Christian and non-Christian people who didn't fully accept what we would call evolution. And some of them will actually go so far as to phrase it as saying, well, I'm okay with microevolution, but I'm not okay or not comfortable with macroevolution, which I think reveals profound differences in our methodology. Because I wouldn't say, well, I'm comfortable with gravity, but I'm uncomfortable with, general relativity, so I don't believe in it. I'm not saying that that's your method necessarily, or maybe it is and you don't realize it, and not to. I hope that's not too forward.
Yeah. So to be honest, when the Quran says that Allah is the best of creators, I would not expect Allah to go and create a replica of every species from scratch. So that is my proof of evolution, is that a good designer would use a previous template and then evolve that template forward. What I said was not that I don't believe in speciation. I'm not clear, and that may just be my personal ignorance, that I'm not clear on how things get speciated. Now, obviously, if you get isolated in Australia or the Galapagos Islands, then yes, speciation happens over a period of time. But we've seen speciation happen in the plains of Africa, where there is no physical boundaries between two different populations. Then the human speciation, the 3 or 4 species of Homo, and a few of them became extinct for no reason whatsoever. I mean, for example, the Neanderthals and Homo erectus and other such Homo species became completely extinct for no known reason. They were not susceptible to climate changes. They were geographically isolated, and then only Homo sapiens evolved into modern human beings. So what I'm saying is there's still mysteries around speciation, but not to say that I do not believe in evolution. Any good creator would do the same, would not build things from scratch, you know.
There are
What do
actually
you mean by no
instances of
speciation has been observed?
Let's stop, go, and then Rash, and then I have a comment.
I have 2 questions. What do you mean speciation? Do you mean it is unclear? Do you mean it has not been observed? It has been sometimes observed, or you don't understand it? And the second question I have is the best of the creators. Which creators?
Okay, so that's an Arabic expression. Ahsanul Khaliqin. It means that anybody who creates, God is the best of creators. So
okay, which creators?
Yes, if I make a mouse and I make a glass here, I'm a creator of this glass, and Allah is the creator of the universe. So using the expression Ahsanul Khaliqin does not mean that there are other equals to Allah as the creator of the universe according to the Quran. It just means it's an Arabic expression that He is the best creator out there, which means that He must have done what anybody does, is to reuse and be able to evolve from templates. Now, when I talk about speciation, I mean that there are still a lot of mysteries around it. I'm only clear on geographical speciation, which is when 2 populations of living things become geographically isolated and they cannot interbreed, and over time the regular evolution happens and they become so far apart that they're not able to interbreed anymore. But we've seen other types of speciation which I'm not clear on. Maybe it's been a few years since I've observed or read much literature, but I'm very keen to know how speciation without geographical isolation happens, and also how the different human breeds, the different human species that existed a few thousand years ago have become extinct, and only Homo sapiens survived.
Okay, I have a quick comment on this, and then I'd like Rationalizer to, he never got a chance to discuss what it was that he's offering. He's offering a great item for the charity, and even now that item is being improved upon. But really quick, let's move on after this. I would say that you said that you're eager to learn, which puts you in the top echelon of people that we talk about on this subject, because we talk to so many people who are so stubborn and drag their feet and don't want to understand it. It really becomes trying of our patience. But that's kind of our thing. You've come to the right people if you want to know more about the subject. I mean, myself, DPR, we know a lot of people who are very prominent science education channels on YouTube. I don't know how much time you spend on YouTube, but we could point you in the direction of people who, if you're fuzzy on any of these issues or just want to learn more, they would be great, particularly when it comes to evolution, speciation, and human evolution. One channel I would recommend to anyone who wants to learn more about this is a channel called Nephilim Free. I'll spell it out both in the chat and in the Skype call. And he's studied this for years. He's really quite knowledgeable about his chosen field, and I think that you could learn a lot from watching his channel. Anyway, Rationalizer, you please tell us about your charity item.
Yeah, Akber, if you have a look for ring species, you don't actually need a physical barrier for speciation. If you consider the fact that if there's one population of animals that spread, say, over 1,000 miles, the lizard at the one end of the 1,000 miles can't travel down and breed with the lizard at the other end of the 1,000 miles, and what you get is an average mutation pool going on throughout, and it kind of varies like a sliding scale. And what you find is creatures that live close to each other can breed together, but if you take the lizard from the one end and put it with the lizard from the other end, that they can't breed together. So if you have a look at ring species, it's quite interesting. You know, it is definitely. I don't know lots about it, but it's definitely an interesting subject.
To be fair, Rationalizer, ring speciation does require geographical separation.
Yeah, but geographical separation can be distance. That's what I'm saying. I know what you're saying, because what you're saying is the 2 points. You're talking, say, the Ensatina salamander, where they're actually separated by a physical rift. What I'm talking about is the fact that the species, I mean, that observed phenomena there. I'm just saying, look at ring species for an example of how this kind of smooth variation occurs, and the extreme result being the start at the top, come down there, they can all breed together, but then the 2 points here and here can't breed together. But it's also the same for long distance speciation, where within a certain amount of distance they can all breed together, but if you took the two extreme ends, they can't breed together, or they show a preference for not breeding together because they're different colours or something like that, and choose a sexual preference not to breed.
Can I just throw in a recommendation for a channel for Akber as well? If you're not prepared to trust atheists on this issue, there's a very good channel by a very overt theist called Oren Ra. I'm sure he's done many videos on the subject as well.
Stop it now. Stop it. Akbar. I can't sit and let this. Nephilim 3, he knows nothing about evolution, and he talks rubbish. I don't know, he believes in mermaids and stuff. I can't remember.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Aaron Rory's not a thief. I'm sorry, Akbar, they are playing you up a little bit.
I don't know. This is why we can't have nice things. I just wish we could have seen the expression on his face when he saw the lead. They're right, it was a practical joke.
If we're going to have a joke at his expense, we have to let him in on it. It's only fair. It's only fair. He has to have
okay, do you understand the... Never mind.
Yeah, so... I mean, I have no doubt that if it's scientifically proven, it will be. I mean, I read Charles Darwin's book. It's still on my Android phone. Very fascinating way he discusses the survival of the fittest, and how he worked very, very hard with the pigeons and with all these things. So I'm not saying that I do not believe in speciation. I say I'm not very clear, and I don't believe scientists are very 100%.
I think I have to say I think that's a very good approach to take, and if you're open to learn about it, then I'm positively encouraged by that. I would suggest one thing. Obviously, 150 years has gone past since Darwin published that book, and he was not aware of DNA. He was not aware of all sorts of things that have subsequently been discovered. The evidence for evolution, speciation, has changed dramatically over the last 150 years, and I think that if you did look into it with the open mind that you appear to have, I don't think that you'd be left in any doubt. It's true.
Yeah, so for me, it is enough that number one, all living things originated from water or were created from water, and then Allah says, in the Quran, that I created you in steps, and then the Quran says that a day is equal to 50,000 years. A day in the reckoning of your Lord is equal to so many hundred thousands of years. So to me, that is enough for me not to say that my Quran and my science contradict each other, and that's about it.
But we are not water-based. We are carbon-based.
But there's a lot of carbon on different planets, but if you don't have water, you can't have life. Carbon
you said we are created from water. We are not. We are created from carbon.
The essence of life is water. You can have carbon somewhere but not have life, but you cannot have carbon without water and have life.
That's not the point. The point is that you said we are created from water. We are not created from water. We might have originated in the water, and that was 3.8 billion years ago. But if we look at humans and organic life is carbon-based, not water-based. Just because we are 68 or 70 whatever percent water does not mean we are created from water. We are still carbon-based.
Well, I think it's a semantical point, though. I think DPR was about to say something. If you grab an organic chemistry book and you see the lines with no notation, each of those points on the line is a carbon with as many hydrogens as it takes to fulfill its valence. So, we're both. It's like saying, well, a cake is sugar and wheat or sugar.
Yes, my point was I was supporting Akber in his observation that yes, carbon is plentiful in the universe, but without water, as far as we know, life is not possible. So I agree with both of you. I agree with Stop when he says we did not come from water, but without water we could not be here. And I think that, I say, maybe a semantic argument, but I understand fully what Akber's saying.
But that's not what the Quran says. This is my point.
No, I don't think it's a really very good point to argue anyway, because the verse says that created from water every living thing. It doesn't mean necessarily made of water. It could mean that from within water we were made, rather than of the substance.
That's exactly my point.
And that's what I actually believe that it means, because it says that, have you not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity? We separated them and then made from water every living thing. In Genesis, there is the deep, the heavens and the earth get separated, and then life appears in water. It's said in Genesis, it's just literally a rewording of Genesis. It doesn't mean anything scientific. It just literally says the same thing as Genesis, that animals were in water. That's it. So now, I'm going to mention the book now.
We're kind of chasing our tails, okay? Please talk about the book.
Can you mention the background to it, that it's for the eBay auction for MSF? Thank you.
I think it happened as early as the 70s, but certainly throughout the 80s, a number of scientists were invited by a man called Sheikh Zindani to various places such as Jeddah, where they were asked questions about science. In some cases, they weren't expecting any religious context at all. Alfred Kroner, for example, he was at a geology conference when a camera crew turned up and started to ask them, what do you think of this sentence? Does this describe the expansion of the universe, and so on and so on? And then there were other people such as Pete Palmer, who were told that the Islamic countries do a periodic review of their understanding of the meanings of the vague Arabic words. And what they do is they change their understanding of the meaning of the words in order to reconcile it against modern discoveries. And they wanted his help to try to help them understand what these Arabic words could mean. But basically the upshot of it was Zindani interviewed lots of people, led them very leading questions, recorded the interviews, cut the interviews up and then told the world that Western scientists were confirming that the Quran predicted scientific discoveries, and it contained information that couldn't possibly have been known 1400 years ago, and that all of these scientists, even if they weren't ready to admit it, could quite clearly see that something fairly miraculous was happening. I did a series, the name of the video was This Is the Truth. I did a series called This Is the Truth Uncut, where I've interviewed 4 of the scientists who explained what really happened, and they have written a short statement inside a Quran that I have and signed it. The significance of them writing it in this Quran was that it's from QuranProject.org, and it consists of the translation of the meaning of the Quran at the beginning, and then at the back it contains a list of scientific proofs that this is miraculous and from a divine entity, and they quote the scientists. So what I did was had these scientists write a statement in this book saying my statements in this book are not what I believe, and signed it. DPR asked me to hold the book up and show it. Good news and bad news. The bad news is I can't hold it up and show it. The good news is the reason that I can't hold it up and show it is because it's currently going through air travel to the USA to one of the Quran scientists called Joe Lee Simpson, who, despite refusing to let me have a telephone or a video interview, has agreed that in benefit of Doctors Without Borders, he will write a statement in the book and sign it. So hopefully, by the time the auction goes ahead, it will be 5 of the scientists will have statements written in the book, and one of them will include a scientist that hasn't got an interview.
Akber, you raised your hand. Did you have something to say?
No, I was just scratching
okay.
the face of it. But yes, go ahead.
So DPR, has the schedule changed? Are we still on the same time as our usual show?
You are indeed, but you unfortunately are restricted only to 1 hour.
That's fine.
As I say, for people watching the show, whether you're watching now, it'll take me a couple of hours to get the announcement up on the webpage, which is linked above the video box for those who may be watching this on YouTube at a subsequent date. Not only will our information be up, but even if it is after the event, the donation pages will still be open, I think, until maybe late December, early January. So if you're watching this in a couple of months' time, you can still donate.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. We're going to let DPR go for now. We appreciate your input, as always.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Salam. Okay, well, we got about 8 minutes left in the show. I'm just going to read off a comment. Someone said, I'm reading this verbatim from the person who messaged me, and this is directed towards our guest. This person says, my microphone is not working, so I will ask in text. I would like the guest to talk about Ahmadiyya relations with the Shia and Christians in Pakistan, as they are all subjected to discrimination and violence by Wahhabis and Salafists.
Okay. Ahmadiyya relations with any Muslim group are not very good and have not been historically very good. Now, when it comes to Christians are not happy with the Ahmadiyya at all, because, believe it or not, their founder, the founder of the Ahmadiyya, claimed to be Jesus Christ himself, claimed to be a second reincarnation of Jesus Christ, and he used many bad words against Jesus himself. And in 1954 in Pakistan, the Christian community got an Ahmadiyya book banned because it was very derogatory to Christ. So those relations are not very good at all, have not been historically good, and they do not talk to each other or do not cooperate with each other at all. However, the current climate in Pakistan is that of discrimination and a rise of religious fundamentalism and radicalism, where both Christians and Ahmadis sometimes become victims. Even in this common victimization at times, they have not had the rapport or the coming together that you would expect from 2 communities that were being victimized from time to time. So this is the 2 different dimensions there. They will never come together. The Ahmadiyya will never cooperate with any other religious group. They are against everybody, especially the Christians. And even despite victimization, you will not see any cooperation between those. The third thing there is that Ahmadiyya, for good reason or bad, do not participate in the electoral process in Pakistan because there are seats in the parliament, Pakistani parliament, for minorities. And seats have been reserved for Christians and seats have been reserved for the Ahmadiyya. Now, because of two reasons, the Ahmadiyya do not participate in those seats, whereas the Christians do, and always the minorities minister in cabinet is most likely a Christian, almost always. He has been a Christian in Pakistan. Ahmadiyya will not vote because, number one, they want to vote. They do not want to be treated as a minority, and they are forced to declare themselves a minority before they can vote. And number two, it would also they would also have to show the actual percentage of the population, which they are not very happy to do. So this is the situation in Pakistan right now. I keep on top of it, and this is the current situation there right now. Talking about Wahhabism, Salafism, again, without being too controversial here, it is again a cultural, the Arab culture is probably the biggest thing that's holding Islam back, or that has been a problem for Islam in the last 100 years ago. The Arabian, the money from Saudi Arabia contributes a lot to that, 50%. And 50% of that is the American aggression right next door in Pakistan, right next door to Pakistan in Afghanistan, that allows people to focus their energies to a common enemy instead of trying to improve themselves. So those are the two causes of radicalization. I believe it very disingenuous for Americans like Robert Spencer and others to talk about Islamic radicalization as if it were an isolated thing. If it was just happening in a vacuum just because Islam happened to be evil, therefore Islamists are radicalized. They do not look at the political situation in Pakistan, and they do not look at Pakistan is almost at war with America. And if you are a proud, Pakistan is composed of 4 groups of people, 2 of which are very proud and tribal origin. And they simply do not like American bombs or American drones coming onto their territory. As simple as that. Now, if the Wahhabis give them arms, or the Chinese give them arms, or the Russians give them arms, it's immaterial. They are there to fight what they see as an intrusion into their territory.
Okay. Well, we're just about out of time. I'm going to give final comments to Rash, Stop, and then finally to Akbar. Before we let you go, we just want to say, as we say to all of our Muslim guests, we of course thank you for your time, and we appreciate and acknowledge the courage that it takes to come on a show where you're outnumbered and it's 3 skeptics against 1 person of faith. So we really appreciate it. We're glad that things were civil throughout. And I'll start with the Rationalizer for closing comments.
Yeah, Akbar, I'd also like to say thanks very much for coming along. I would really have enjoyed going more into the story of how you flirted with atheism, what those thoughts were that led you to that, and what your thoughts were that led you out of it. But we ran out of time. So, you know, if you're available some other time, maybe come back and we'll have a chat about that. I think it'll be quite interesting. But as I said, thanks very much. It's been enjoyable. You've smiled a lot, so that means I like you.
Stop spamming.
Thank you. Thank you guys very, very much for having me on, and welcome anytime. I would quote Dostoevsky, who was a Russian author, who said, "My faith was born in the crucible of doubt." And with that, I leave you.
One second. Stop Spamming has a comment, or I'm giving him a chance to stop. Do you have something?
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. It's been very interesting to hear the different opinions from different groups. I love the versatility and insight into the different areas. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Before you go, and I really hope that this doesn't break our track record on civility, because this is a bit forward, but I do have to say this. I think that you really, from my perspective, lost all credibility when you said that Spock was from Star Wars. That's like me asking how many animals did Muhammad bring on the Ark. Take care, everyone. We'll see you on the charity show. Salam. Goodbye.
Sure. Okay.
I'd just like to leave you all with a parting thought. If you are going to join a religious cult, please first make sure that they practice safe sects.